Okay, it looks like we're ready. Claudia, you ready to go? Okay, good. All right, good morning. Welcome, everyone. June 12th, 2024 Downtown Action Committee. And we will go ahead and start with a roll call, please.
Samuel Grace,
Present.
Gregory Gabriel, Nick Mielich,
Present.
Roger Jensen,
Present?
Brad McPherson,
Present.
Kim Doe,
Present.
Dr. Brian Laura.
Present.
Let the record reflect that Gregory Gabriel and Brian Chegas are absent.
You didn't call my name, did it? Am I still on the board? I'm Michael Baxt.
Excuse me, and Michael Baxt.
Baxt. Present.
Okay, good. Looks like we have a quorum. We're in good shape there. Item 2, approval of minutes from the April 10th hearing. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, deletions, additions, or a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve minutes.
Okay, second?
Seconded.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Carries. April 10th minutes approved. Here we go. Item 3, report from City Urban Designer. Claudia, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Babin, City Urban Designer. One update that I have for you is that the City of West Palm is accepting proposals for a qualified consultant to review the city's current downtown master plan. This was released on May 21st, and it has a deadline of July 10th. And we will provide you more updates as we move forward.
Okay, good. I think that's necessary. Okay. We'll skip over, let's see, no specific remarks, but we'll do some stuff later on in unfinished business, but we'll get things moving here. So, good, we'll move into ex parte communication. Anyone on the board have any ex parte to declare for today's cases? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Public hearing. So we'll get into today's cases. Anyone that will be speaking or providing testimony today, if you kindly stand and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Great. And when you do speak, it's your turn. Just you stand up to the microphone, state your name and address, and all that will be good for the record. Okay, new cases today. We'll go ahead and get right into the formal site plan review. Case number 23-13, request by Harvey Orr, Schutz and Bowen, on behalf of West Palm Beach WPB Fern Holdings. We'll go ahead and
Good morning. I am not Harvey Orr. I'm Meredith Lay with Schutz and Bowen. I'm here on behalf of the owners, WPB Fern Holdings, and here to present to you the WPB Fern residences. The request before you is a stack special review and concurrent alleyway abandonment. Our project design team representatives are here if you have any questions for you. The proposed project is an 8-story multifamily mixed-use development with multifamily and ground floor residential or ground floor commercial. The development includes 340 multifamily units and approximately 19,500 square feet of ground floor commercial, and there's also a rooftop amenity deck included. This project is very centrally located in downtown. It's in the Quadro Garden District zoning district, and it has it's in the incentive sub-district. So it's allowed 10 stories by right, up to 25 stories with incentives, TDRs, 2.75 floor area ratio permitted by right, up to 5.5 FAR. Getting into some specifics of the request, the criteria that has brought us here today before you is the fact that the project will utilize incentives to obtain a little bit of extra TDRs to achieve the program. It also includes the alleyway abandonment. The alleyway abandonment is about 5,700 square feet, and per code, that square footage has to be integrated into the project as open space. Also, the project site is larger than 50,000 square feet, so for those reasons, we are before you. Here's an image of one of the open spaces here. It's the open space courtyard, which is integrated in the center of the building. The proposed building is 88 feet high. where the maximum height is 10 stories by right up to 128 feet. So we are coming in below the maximum allowed height, but it is at scale with much of the development along Quadro Boulevard currently. The parking is a 7-story integrated parking lot, or parking structure, but it has the residential units wrapped around it, so it would not be visible from your Dixie, Gardenia, or Quadro, or Fern Street for that matter. The garage also includes 70 parking spaces for the existing 401 South Dixie Highway building. If you'll remember, a few months ago, we came, well, actually it was a lot longer than that we came before the DAC for a historic designation of the Florida Public Utilities building at the corner of Dixie and Fern. So that building has been integrated into the site, and for that reason, we've included parking for that building and the new garage. Comes in at a total of 3.52 FAR, and the total development square footage is about 405,000 square feet. That includes the new building square footage as well as the existing 3-story building. We will require about 90,000 or 89,000 square feet of TDRs. Those TDRs have already been acquired by the developer. The project also includes 22 proposed affordable housing units per the DMP incentive program. So we believe that the project brings some community benefit or some benefits to the community. In addition to those 22 units that I spoke about that are going to be affordable to those who earn, or for those households at 100% or less of the AMI, there'll be some employment brought to the city with an additional commercial. The ground floor commercial will include, retail and restaurant, and there will be mobility options. So the code does require car sharing and bike sharing. Those have been included into the development as well as some beautification. Obviously, this is a block that it's very centrally located, but it is currently occupied with boarded up buildings and a grassed lot. So this project will beautify that block with new hardscape lighting, furnishings, and landscaping. Obviously, with a new development such as this to scale, it'll require some infrastructure upgrades. And as mentioned before, the historic preservation of that 401 South Dixie Highway building. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Hunter Mansour, who will talk about the particulars of the affordable housing, and then he'll get into a little bit of the architecture and design and site design for you. And I'll come back towards the end to wrap it up for you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Hunter Mansour with Wexford Real Estate Investors, one of the developers on the project, along with 13th Floor and L&L Holdings. I'd like to thank you, Meredith, taking over. So on the affordable housing, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we are the first project to come in to utilize the Downtown Master Plan's workforce housing incentive. Is that still correct? Great. So how the square footage is allocated for affordable housing is, of that 89,000 square feet that we were able to take advantage of with the TDRs, you take a percentage of that, the 20% is required by that incentive, so you get to 17,800. From there, you actually add an efficiency factor to account for corridors, back of house, so that gets us to about 14,244, which is the square footage. You're probably asking yourself how we got there. That is how we got there, the calculation that is prescribed by the code. Though that square footage is then allocated amongst 22 units. We have 9 studios, 9 one-bedrooms, and 4 two-bedrooms. And as Meredith mentioned, it's within a 60 to 100% AMI range. So 6 of those units will be between the 60 and 80% AMI range. 5 units will be between the 80 and 100% range, and then 11 units will be at the 100% range. As far as the project itself, this gives you a great overview of the ground floor plan. So on your left hand, you have Quadro Boulevard, which is an avenue. On the north, you have Fern Street. On the east, you have Dixie Highway. And then on the south, you have Gardenia Street. We'll start along Quadrille, so we have about 11,000 square feet of commercial along Quadrille. As you rotate up clockwise, we have a nice little plaza area that leads into that interior courtyard. Here's where we will put our public art. We've already spoken with Sabile about this. We haven't yet selected the artist, but we'll be working in concert with them in the city to make sure that we select an artist that is appropriate for this project. From there, going along Fern Street, we have the main lobby for the residential area, as well as about 3,500 square feet of commercial. And then we have a nice public open space that really bifurcates our new project with the 3-story FPUC building. So that's about 5,000 square feet, and it gives about a 40 to 50-foot buffer between the new and the old. And then rotating around Fern Street and Dixie, you still have all of the retail that's going to be in the 3-story FPUC building. So that would be the Johann Joe's. And then I believe they have one vacant space that they've been talking to a tenant. So that'll all remain as is today. And then as you come down Dixie Highway, there is the vehicular entrance into the parking garage for all of our residential tenants, as well as the commercial tenants that Meredith alluded to. So we'll have 70 ground floor and second-story parking for the 3-story FPUC building. And then as you keep going clockwise, you have about 4,600 square feet of commercial along Dixie that wraps around Gardenia. And then really Gardenia serves as our, back of house service, since it is the only secondary street that we have on our project. So here you have our FPL vault, all of our back of house uses, as well as the entrance into our service area, which is labeled. So that's all of our loading and our trash pickup. And then finally, coming back around, we have 4 residential units that are really kind of walk-up units. You've seen those all around downtown. They have a nice little patio, so people with dogs can easily get out of their units. And then Meredith did allude to that interior public open space, which we'll show you a better rendering of. We're really excited about that. I know that it labels it as semi-public open space and then private open space, but really it's one cohesive interior courtyard. Those designations were done primarily and only for zoning purposes, just because we had to meet certain square footages because of the alley abandonment. But really, you'll see it's one cohesive interior courtyard. So I don't want you to think that it'll be fenced off just purely for private open space use. Going up the building. So this is I don't want to say a typical, this is the second floor, and you'll see a typical going up. The only difference here is that we do have an open space that is on that south, I don't know if I can even point with the mouse, but there you go. So right there is a little open space pop-up, and that is so that we can service our trash interior so that we have no trash coming out onto the street. I know Claudia was very concerned about that with staff, so we were able to satisfy that request. And then the only other item that will be atypical on this floor is we do have a second-story bump out along Fern Street and Quadrille as well to give more height for that entrance, and you'll see a really good rendering of that, and I'll allude back to this. And then you have your wrap parking garage as well. So really about 44 units on this floor wrap around this parking garage as well as the interior courtyard. And then this is really the typical floor. I know that it says floors 4 through 6, but it was actually a typo. It's really 3 through 7. I apologize for that. But you can see those 2-story pop-ups have now been included with units. But really the majority of the floor is as was previously depicted. And then the 8th floor is where we get to the true private amenity. So here we'll have about 7,600 square feet of indoor amenity, which is outlined in the blue. That will house a fitness center, social club area, office space, and it really spills out onto the pool deck and landscaped area. So we imagine about a 1,500 square foot pool, as well as pickleball courts on top, buffering between Dixie and the pool right there. So you can see that area over here, and we can show you a rendering afterwards. This is the elevation of the building. So here is the west elevation. This is if you were imagining standing on quadrille. So it's an 8-story, pretty typical elevation all the way up. Here is the north elevation. So this is as if we were standing on Fern Street. Here's the entrance to the project right here, the entrance to the lobby for the residential, I should say. Here's the entrance to that interior courtyard over here. This is essentially the corner of Fern and Quadrille. And then here is the existing FPUC building in its 3 stories. Back here is the screening of the garage. I know that this is a condition that Claudia has set on our approvals, that we need to continue to work with staff to ensure that that screening, which we're actually proposing as a flex facade, it's a fiberglass material that we can customize with any color, any mural, should we want to go that route. But we'll work with city staff to make sure it's something that they're excited about. Let me continue to go. This is the east elevation, so this is standing along Dixie. This is the entrance to the garage, the main entrance to the garage for all of the residential tenants. Here's that FPUC building, here's the other side of it. There is a 15-foot buffer between our new building and the back of that FPUC building. That back of the FPUC building is really their back of house as well, so we're not impeding on any views. We work with John and Kent, the existing owners, to make sure that they were comfortable with this as well. And then here you can see the rooftop garden on the 8th floor. And then here is that south elevation. While it is our service, kind of our service back of house street elevation, we still were able to put a lot of retail uses. Here's the entrance to that, to the service areas. We do have a roll down screen so that it will be out of sight during off hours. And then here are those 4 residential units as well that have the patios. Here's some of the materials. It's a pretty standard, concrete building with a lot of plaster finishes, grays, whites, as depicted in the renderings, aluminum metal frames, and then here is that structure flex that I was alluding to, which is that composite material that, again, it's been used all over South Florida, a lot in Miami. We'll work with city staff to make sure it's something that they're comfortable with. From the streetscape, we do have our landscape architect here to answer any questions, but a lot of natural color or neutral colors with dark grays, light grays, as well as some modern takes on bike racks and benches. Here's the rendering. This is Fern Street right here, and then Quadrille along here. And then here is that area that I spoke of. This really leads you into the interior courtyard. There we have a Kuntz. Obviously, we cannot afford that. The artist took a very big liberty on putting that there, but it will be a very nice piece of art. We have checked the box that we'll spend a good amount of money. It is 1% of our building permit costs. So right now we're estimating that to be about $1 million. I wish I could afford that $100 million piece of art, but we simply can't. So we will come back with an art that obviously city staff will enjoy. Here is the rendering looking back on the building. This is Gardenia along here, and then this is Dixie running up the side of the building. So this is that retail bay that is on the corner of Dixie and Gardenia. So again, while it is a service street, we really do want to activate this corner quite a bit. And then you can see this rooftop amenity poking out over here. We do want to landscape that heavily so that we have some activation up there. Going forward, so this is looking back on Fern Street towards the entrance. This is the lobby entrance right here where it says 464 Fern. Here is that other retail that is on the corner of Fern and that public open space. And here's the area that we're very excited about. This is that public open space between our new building and the Johann Joe's building that'll really service both buildings. The Johann Joe's building actually has their entrance along this public open space, so the owners of that building are very excited about this, that we're able to essentially enhance their building as well as ours to make just more of a public open space. And then here's that rendering of the the garage screen, that flex facade. So again, we'll work with city and staff on that. And then you can see the pool deck poke out a little bit on top of the 8th floor. Here's the interior courtyard. So imagine you had just walked through that, that entrance on the corner of Fern and Quadrille. So the widths on this and the measurements, it's about 150 feet long by 150 feet wide. So it is a very generous space. It does get a lot of natural light. I know one of our concerns always as owners is these interior corridors a lot of times feel very dark and unsafe, and they just don't get a lot of natural light. So we did do a sun study, and because of the widths and the depths of these measurements, we're able to get a lot of sun throughout the year. So we're able to plant a lot of great vegetation, and this will be a fantastic public open space that allows not only for our residents to come down here and unwind, but it will also actually activate I'm gonna flip back a little bit, sorry, just bear with me. It'll actually allow this commercial space, this 11,000 square feet of commercial space, to have outdoor dining in this public open space. We didn't really want them to have outdoor dining along Quadrille because it is a very heavily trafficked area. Nobody was going to want to sit and have dinner on Quadrille. So what we're going to do is have this, and we're imagining a restaurant. So we're going to have this restaurant spill out into this public open space, which you can kind of see here with these tables and chairs. We'll probably add some awnings as well so that they can really activate this space. And then this is the 8th floor amenity deck. So you can see the pool, great views out onto the intercoastal. We have a bar over here, and then just off into the background that you can't see will be that pickleball court. So this is really looking towards Dixie and towards the east. And lastly, this is an aerial view looking down along Fern and Quadrille. So this kind of gives you the scale of the building. Meredith had mentioned, I actually spent 2 years of my life designing this as a high-rise. In the end, it didn't work, so we actually scaled it down to an 8-story. And after meeting with city staff, I think we all agreed that the scale of this building actually fits much better with the rest of the buildings along Quadrille than the one that we were previously proposing, which is a 25-story high-rise. Meredith, I'm going to turn it back over to you for the alley abandonment.
Thank you, Hunter. So lastly, the alley abandonment. The alley area includes about 5,689 square feet of land. There's utilities, there's easements. All of those will be relocated for the new development. And because we have to integrate that square footage, Hunter spoke to how that is going to work with the open space, but we also have to make sure that the service area is integrated into the building, and that will all be on the south side of the building on Gardenia Street. So with that, we have the DAC standards for special review and the alley abandonment. We believe we comply with all 4 of the standards. Staff agrees, their staff report, as indicated in their staff report, they agree that we comply with all 4 standards. I can go over each one in specific, but we'll spare you the time. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer any of them for you. Same goes for the alley abandonment of right-of-way standards. Staff does recommend approval with conditions. There are 2 conditions listed and indicated in the staff report we've agreed to. However, we've also had some talks with staff about adding an additional tree onto Dixie Highway, on the Dixie Highway frontage on the north or south side of the driveway to the garage. We've agreed to take another look at that and add a tree where it's feasible. So with that, we would respectfully request your approval of the special review and recommendation of approval of the alleyway abandonment, and I will take any questions that you have at this point. Thank you.
Great, thank you, nice presentation. We'll probably hold questions. We're going to hear from staff, I'm assuming. Yeah, let's get to that, and then we'll come back to you. Thank you very much.
Claudio Aven, City Urban Designer. I will be skipping some of the information that I have in my presentation because it was already presented by the applicant. I do want to point out that this case is including two requests. One is the special review approval, and the other one is the alley abandonment recommendation that will go to City Commission. We know the location, we know what the project is about, so I'm going to skip this one. I do want to point out where this is located, the Quadro Garden District 10. And the intent of this district is really to be a transition between the Quadro Business District and the waterfront. It is encouraged to preserve historic buildings in this district, and it's also encouraged to have as much as vegetation as possible because it's called the Garden District. They also mentioned that this is a receiving site, and they are taking advantage of the Transfer of Development Rights program. That means that they will increase their capacity based on the QGD 1025. So the base sub-district where they're located, it has a maximum height of 8 stories, but with the incentivized sub-district, they can go up to 25 stories. The same for the FAR. The base FAR will be 2.75, but they can go up to 5.5. Here you can see on this table the actual amounts where you have the minimums and maximums and what they are proposing. And like they mentioned, they are required to transfer 89,028 TDRs to the site, which they have done. They actually transferred an amount of 109,900 square feet of TDRs already, and they will have some remaining TDRs in this site. The other thing that they mentioned is the housing program. And the reason why they are subject to that is because they are proposing more than 25% of residential uses. That will mean that they have to have 20% of their incentivized TDR gross square footage allocated for restricted units. Hunter provided that information on the breakdown of all of that, and this is just the same information. And just to point out that we will continue to work with the applicant, the city, CRA, to really draft that agreement before the building permit is issued. Again, the request is the approval of the special review pursuant Section 9454B2 and the DAC recommendation for the abandonment of the east-west alley located on South Quadro Boulevard in South Dixie pursuant to Chapter 78, Article 7, and Chapter 94, Article 4, Section 94112. It is subject to special review. Meredith actually mentioned this because it is utilizing TDRs. It is requesting an alley abandonment, and the lot is greater than 50,000 square feet. So I'm going to go briefly through these different 4 standards for the special review, and after that we'll go over the alley abandonment. So the relationship of the building to the site and surroundings, as I mentioned, this is an 8-story building. The surrounding properties can go up to 10 or 25. South and north can actually be incentivized too, so they can go up to 25, so the massing actually aligns with development around it. They are preserving the historic district on the corner, which is encouraged in this district, and they are meeting all the code requirements for this particular district. And they are also have the art, which is located in the plaza that they mentioned on Quadro and Fern Street. At the street level, as Hunter mentioned, they do provide a lot of commercial space, open space, and even residential units around the entire block. In terms of circulation, this was already explained to you about the amount of parking spaces, 7-level garage, the entrances that we have on South Dixie Highway, and the service area that will be located on Gardenia Street. They also have a lot of amenities like a bike sharing station. They have on-street parking. They have bike storage in the center of the whole development that will be serving all the users, residential, commercial, and office users. We do recommend to just carefully look at those driveways to make sure the pedestrian impacts will be minimized, any negative impacts, and that will be, additional pavement marking, signage, speed bumps, or any other things, as well as keeping the level of the sidewalk as the same throughout these driveways. In terms of building design, this is a contemporary design style. They have provided articulation through the use of windows and doors. They also have planar breaks on their facade planes, and they have this very distinct curve balconies and projections. They mention all the materials that they're using, and they also mention the architectural treatment that will be used to screen the non-active use, which is parking. And this is a combination of the horizontal projections, concrete trims, but also the use of the structure flex screen mesh system. And for that, we did take a look at what that material can do. And here you can see on your left side, this was just taken out of the website, and see how that material can be manipulated in different ways, with color, with a different size of panels, with even can become three-dimensional. So that was the one condition that we're adding to further advance that design for those particular areas where they're using that to screen the parking. So that way, again, we have open space in front of it. It can become more of an active space. Public realm, they mention again, they do have a lot of open space on the ground floor, and they also have a terrace on the 8th floor. The requirement is for them to provide public space and private open space, but because they're abandoning the alley, they are also required to provide additional open space, which they are doing. And here you can see the public open space is labeled as number 1 on the plan. The private open space is, again, some portion of it is provided on the ground floor, and another portion of it is provided on the terrace on the 8th level. And the semi-public space labeled as number 3 is the one that will be compensated due to the alley abandonment. They also have a plaza, which is an additional space and green areas around it, and kind of like an entrance to those courtyards. And overall, they do have sidewalks. There are a minimum of 8 feet and a maximum of 15 feet, which will improve drastically the existing conditions of the site. And they do have a lot of landscaping surrounding the whole development too. In terms of the alley abandonment, a formal appraisal was submitted and conducted by Anderson Cars. The applicant agreed to pay the appraisal value of $1,650,000 for the alley. Per section 94.112, there are 2 requirements that were already mentioned. One of them is that all the services need to be internalized and screened from view, and they're doing so by having the service area accessible from Gardenia Street. And the other one is to provide that open space at the same ratio of, the same amount of the square footage of the alley and the open space that they're providing, which is a semi-public open space. This is the other criteria that was reviewed by the alley abandonment, and it complies. More information about this criteria and the evaluation is on the staff report. And in terms of other reviews, we do have the Plans and Plats Review Committee, which was, the proposed development was reviewed on October 12, 2023, and the applicant has addressed all their comments. They also provided a traffic concurrency letter, although they will need to be updating that to reflect the actual amount of proposed development. And they do provided a school concurrency letter received on November 7, 2023. Public notice, the notification of this hearing was sent out to all property owners within 500 feet radius of the project. And planning staff also received on June 1st a letter from resident John Garabo. And I can read to you the actual letter. Dear Ms. Imaben, I am in receipt of your correspondence in reference to the above matter. I'm a full-time resident owner of the Prado, 600 South Dixie Highway, apartment 621, and member of the board of directors of the West Palm Beach Downtown Neighborhood Association, although not riding in my official capacity. I'm unable to make it to the public hearing on June 24th. I'm writing instead to share my feedback with you. I am fully support of the city vacating and abandoning the alleyway to facilitate the construction of the 8-story mixed-use development. The new development will be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood and will add to our downtown's vibrancy. This particular area of the downtown is really in need of it. In the current state, the parcels are overall applied, poorly lit at night with little foot traffic, contributing to the abandonment, empty feel of the streets surrounding the parcels. Thank you for your work on behalf of the city. Best, John Carabo. The recommendation, staff recommends approval with conditions based on the findings of the petition. The petition meets all the standards as indicated of Section 9454B2. This is related to the special review with the conditions that we have on here on the screen and in the staff report. And also regarding the request for the DAC recommendation for the abandonment of the east-west alley, staff recommends approval based on the findings that the petition meets all the criteria as indicated by the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Regulations, Development Regulations, Chapter 78, Article 7. And that is it.
Okay, excuse me, thank you, Claudio. Arthur, maybe a couple of quick questions while you're here, but does anyone have any questions for staff, for Claudio, before you want to go ahead, Mike, sorry.
I'm curious, how do you obtain an appraisal for this alleyway? Who did obtain the appraisal?
The appraisal sometimes can be by the applicant or reviewed by the city, or can be asked by the city.
Right, and who did, in this case?
In this case,
I think you said Anderson Carr?
Anderson Carr.
In regard to the public space, is it going to be closed during any hours, like particularly at night?
No, it should be publicly accessible at all times. I'm sure for safety, they might have to have some lighting going off or anything, but in terms of fencing and all of that, they should not have fenced off any public open space.
And is that at the request of the city to not have it closed at, for example, from midnight to 6 a.m. or anything like that?
We don't really recommend fencing open spaces because that also creates a barrier, not only physical, but also visual.
Can you show me as far as the loading zones?
Yes.
I understand it says something about them being internal.
Yeah,
Yes.
Claudia, could you just bring up that site plan, because I'll have the same kind of question.
Sure. Let me just see which one has the best. I think the circulation one. That's not. There we go. So if you can see here highlighted on orange, on the south at Gardenia Street, that will be where the service area will be located. So they have 3 loading zones, and they also have a space for trash pickup, and everything will be internalized.
Has the city factored in large moving vans going into that space, particularly if you
Yeah,
have-
that's why they also raised the height for it to actually accommodate those vehicles.
Because I'm thinking, for example, at the Park Line, their loading area is horrible. You go down an alley, the trucks can't actually back in to the area without scraping up the side of the building. And if you have more than one truck in there, it's inaccessible. How many trucks can use this space at the same time?
At the same time, I believe 2. Hunter is giving me that.
It's hard for me to determine from this, like
Yeah.
how big the opening is to get in and out of there.
They did provide an auto turn analysis to really look at the queuing of those vehicles and that movement too.
Because certainly with the Park Line, whatever input the city had on that loading zone was insufficient, because that's horrible.
We can look into that.
Can you show me, was it considered the best option to have the entrance in and out of the garage on Dixie, which seems to me to be the busiest street?
Yeah, I think it was considered on other options. I think Fern Street was considered. If Hunter of Meredith, if you would like to speak on what the alternatives were.
In the previous iteration of this design, there was an entrance off of Fern Street and an additional entrance on Quadrille. This new redesign did not call for or didn't really require an entrance off of Fern Street. Plus, for Fern Street to have an entrance, Fern Street is one of the widest right-of-ways in the city, but it's also, I find it's got a pretty interesting character that it goes all the way from the waterfront to Tri-Rail. So we had some conflicts with, well, some issues and extended discussions with staff about having the driveway off of Fern Street, on Fern Street at all. And so but we did think that having it on Dixie would be a more appropriate location, considering that Fern Street was this kind of main thoroughfare, the front door of the development. Does that sum up, right?
I'm just thinking for traffic purposes,
Yeah.
whether, any other street to me seems it would have been a better option than Dixie.
Fern Street, based on the downtown master plan, is also designated as a primary pedestrian street. And we have primary pedestrian streets all over the downtown, which we look for being very pedestrian friendly and avoid to have a lot of curb cuts and driveways in those streets.
So it's the city wanted it to be on Dixie.
Not on Fern Street.
Can you tell me in regard to the number of parking spaces, how many there are per unit?
Per unit,
Yeah.
they have a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2, and they also can provide guest parking for residents.
So each unit has a parking space?
I believe they have 2 parking spaces, or a ratio to 1.5.
Or is it based on bedrooms?
It's approximately 1.5 per unit.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah, quick question. Well, Michael was bringing up the Gardenia side. So essentially, if you look at all of the service, I thought there was a percentage of active use along the street that had to be
Yes,
maintained.
and Gardenia is actually a secondary street, so the percentage of active use is less compared to Fern Street, which is a primary pedestrian street.
But what's that percentage? Because if you take the orange box, really, it probably goes further to the west and much over to the commercial on the east.
Yeah.
It's over
let me just
50%.
Make sure. I think it might be,
Because those are ground level units
30,
on
right?
the west end.
30%. And again, I do want to point out that they do have residential units, which we consider active use on the west side, and they do have commercial on that east side.
But again, the whole white section in the middle looks to be at least 50% of the block there. If you include the generator room, the FPL vault, that whole white section.
It will
You just
be-
have the orange box, looks like just the area into the entrance, into that service area. I'm just concerned that you have more than half of the block that's going to be solid wall for services. And again, this is just going back to the abandonment of the alley issue and the traditional service components being away from the pedestrian portion of the street.
In terms of the code requirement, it will be 30% of that building frontage, and they are meeting that requirement.
That is, oh, okay, 30% required for the active. Okay. Okay, I can we'll just want to make sure they pay special attention to the aesthetics of that portion, because, you
Okay.
find all these buildings coming up, and there's the basic issues of the fire, the standpipes, the water meter, it just becomes unsightly for a long portion of a pedestrian portion of the street.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the percentage. And then what happens then with the abandonment for the service to the Johann Joe building?
They will
Where-
be using the same service area
Which
and
is
also
where?
parking area.
Which is their service is that on the south side, or?
It will be the same side.
Actually, just minor correction. They actually have their own, can you see where my mouse is, Audrey? So they have their own trash room right here, and they actually have their own vault room right here for FPL. So they're going to be able to utilize those areas, and then from there, we'll have a porter on our staff that will go ahead and roll a lot of that trash out of the back and then through here, and so that all of the pickup can happen along Gardenia Street. So we've thought about that service for the Johann Joe's building.
So that stretch right there south of Johann Joe, that's going to be kind of,
Correct, sorry.
that's going to be somewhat of a mess back in there too, in terms of the access and the trash, and it's going to be like a service alley, correct?
Along here, along this back out, right here, it'll be mostly service, but they do have a retail entrance right here. So we will make sure that it's at least landscaped back there, even though it doesn't show it. We'll have some hedges as well.
Yeah, because right now it looks like it might be a little bit of a mess, maybe some landscaping, and, well, I'm sure you guys will pay some special attention to that and make it pretty. Okay, and then just, Claudia, back to the open space. When you have this open space at the northwest corner, are there any restrictions when you have an internal courtyard that's meeting the requirements to have is there a certain width requirement, or it was brought up earlier, gates or access? Is there anything specific to the relationship of the open corner as it enters into the internal courtyard, where it narrows down at the throat there?
Can you repeat that for the plaza or for the
Well, I
interior?
guess which numbers there are meeting the requirements for the open
Yes.
space? Is it
So
three?
for the public open space, the number one is meeting that requirement, and that has to be in front of the right-of-way. It has some other requirements related to tree canopy, seating, and landscaping. For the private open space, they are providing the terrace, which is number two, and also on the ground floor, the number two. Again, this is interior, so it can be behind active uses. I think it has to have two sides that have to be active uses, and also have some requirements related to landscaping and tree canopy. And then for the alley, it will be the number three, and that is designated as a courtyard. And again, it has those requirements similar to landscaping and tree canopy.
Yeah.
The plaza will be the extra that is really just adding that.
Okay. And real quick, do you know, is there anything approved on the property on the south side of Gardenia on that property? And have you seen any submittals for that land on the
No.
north side of the hotel? No, nothing?
No.
What was this one called before? Was it the Cosmopolitan? Yeah. Right. So, okay. I think that's the only sort of technical questions. Any other questions of staff
Yeah.
before we continue on?
I have a few
go
comments
ahead.
and questions. Dealing with the parking, the envelope, is that going to have natural ventilation? Are you going to reduce the amount of mechanical ventilation for the parking through that skin?
Yes, so that skin actually provides for natural ventilation.
Okay.
But we'll work with our MEP to reduce the amount of mechanical ventilation as well.
Because that's going to help with the energy costs of the building as well.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay. And then I have another quick comment. The courtyard, is the surface, the hardscape, is that pervious?
Oh, that's a
Does
good
that
question.
reduce the heat island effect within?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shaylin Castillo, the landscape architects from Wicken House and Partners.
I'm sorry. Have you been sworn?
No.
Anyone else need to be sworn in? Okay.
Do you affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay. Okay. The question was if the concrete pavers are pervious?
Yeah.
Correct? Yes, they will be pervious and they will be laid over sand to allow water to percolate through.
Okay, so that'll reduce the energy costs and the heat island effect within the courtyard throughout. Okay.
Correct.
And then I have one other, with the rooftop, other than the parking above that, have you thought about any kind of amenities, gardens, to reduce the heat island on the roof, pathways, pedestrian pathways, optimizing views on the, not above the parking, but on the rest of the roof?
For
of
the amenity
structure?
deck?
Yeah, but where you have all the mechanical and that's not really being used
Yeah, I think that.
right now, have you thought about any kind of amenities on that roof?
Well, I don't believe there will be amenities on that part of the roof, but we will work with our MEP engineers to ensure that all the things that you're talking about, the heat island cooling effect,
Yeah.
those are implemented.
Like gardens, pathways possibly, you
Exactly,
know?
prefer, and obviously white roofs to reflect the most
Yeah.
amount of sunlight,
Yeah.
things like that. So we will be working with them, because obviously it benefits us as well
Mm-hmm.
from a maintenance standpoint.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Any other questions for staff? Brad?
Yeah, I have a question. Back to the same slide with loading and unloading the garages. Can you pull that one back up? I think you've said it. I think you've probably made it clear. I just want to make sure I'm correct. The Gardenia Street entrance is for all the services, but every other vehicle entering this building for residential and for commercial is off of Dixie. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So I understand there's walkability, but for anyone who drives to this property to access any commercial component, any restaurant, and all the residential, has to enter and leave off Dixie.
Can do that, or can also use the on-street parking on Fern Street.
How many parking spaces are on Fern?
I believe a total of 14 spaces, and we also have 2 spaces here fronting the old building.
Okay. I think the project is great, the appearance is great, what it does for the town is great. I like everything about it. 586 parking spaces with one outlet onto Dixie is difficult to understand. Is there any other option that we can load? Can we have a secondary? It seems like a lot of traffic entering and exiting on Dixie. That's my only problem. The project does otherwise, I think, fantastic.
I have him sworn in, yes. Okay, good morning. For the record, Chris Hagan with Kimley Horn Associates. My address is 477 Rosemary Avenue, and I was sworn in. So I'm the traffic engineer on the site. We did, when this, Hunter originally alluded to the fact that this came in a few years ago with a plan for a high rise. And so we looked at in that plan, and we've analyzed various iterations of different plans. We had one that had multiple entrance points. That one had a driveway on and off of Fern Street. As was mentioned by city staff, that's a primary pedestrian street, and so there was a lot of concern about making a vehicular connection there. So as this site plan evolved and it was changed to what you see in front of you today, we eliminated having a driveway to Fern Street, and again, that was in direct response to the concern about Fern Street being a primary pedestrian roadway. On the west side is Quadrille Avenue, which is that's under the control of FDOT, and it would have been problematic to get FDOT approval for a driveway over on the Quadrille side, and that would also have interrupted the activation of the commercial frontage all along Quadrille, which you see on the plan. So really, all that was left was Dixie and Gardenia, and with the Chair Jansen's point, if we were to try to make a connection on Gardenia, that would further reduce the activation of Gardenia Street, in addition to already having the loading and the vault there. And to be honest, if you look at the way the garage is laid out, the driveway on Dixie connects and directly aligns with the ramp that goes up to the upper levels. So even if you were to try to punch something through on Gardenia, which again kind of reduces then the amount of activation further that could occur on Gardenia, it really wouldn't be utilized with the layout of the garage, because most of the parking spaces are provided on the vast majority of the parking spaces are provided on all the levels that are above this. And so when somebody is using the ramp, they're going to use the driveway that's immediately in front of them, as opposed to then further circulating along the ground level to get out to Gardenia. So we did look at this. Given it does sound like a lot, but especially residential traffic tends to kind of spread out through the day. I mean, there is a peak period in the morning and the evening when commuter traffic is occurring, but it's not as big of a spike as office use. So really, when we analyzed it in the study, it looked like it'll still function appropriately.
Understood. And those are difficulties that are not lost on me. It seems to me that one of the items that the DAC is obligated to consider is the circulation and traffic flow when considering this request. So we have to consider it. The decision to stay away from Fern Street has 14 parking places on it. It's clearly a street that is going to be a street we drive down in cars all day long. It would be great if there could be a second option, if Fern Street didn't have to be shut down as an option. This is my position.
While I have you,
Chris,
how many cars can be backed up at an entrance at Dixie at one time?
You mean the length between the back of sidewalk and the first?
Right, because for example, at the Whitney, it's pretty much one car, and that's why it backs up right in front of the Whitney all the time. Mm-hmm. How many cars can back up there?
Yeah, there's a minimum of 2 vehicles between the edge of the building at the back of sidewalk and the first conflict point internal to the garage.
So 2 cars.
Yeah, we've got 2 vehicles before that first conflict point, but we don't have. So does the Whitney have a gate right at that location?
Well, they have an arm.
Okay, yeah, there's not a gate, and I meant by a gate arm. So there's not a gate arm located at that position. All I was referring to is the depth before you get to kind of that first cross aisle. There is parking that is provided for the Johannes Joe building that is here, and so they don't, that traffic doesn't have to go through a gate to get to this ground level parking. So, let me check.
Chris, well, maybe you just point out where the gate is. Yeah, where's the gate, Chris?
There is no gate, and that's what I was trying to confirm is that there is no gate. So when you're that, and you're right that when you have at a lot of the other buildings, if you've got a gate close to the entrance, and that does create a point of friction, a point of conflict that does cause traffic to back up. Again, this is the entire garage does not have a gate. I couldn't remember if there was one on an upper level, but definitely it is all free and clear. But part of that is because there's parking that is being provided for the Johann Stroh building as well. So there's not a gate there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other technical questions for anyone before we move on?
May I add a question also on the traffic? So is there any drop-off, designated point for drop-off pickup for rideshare like Uber or Lyft? Because I know this is becoming more and more popular, especially downtown. And that if you have designated spots for that would also help with the traffic flow.
As of right now, we don't, but we usually convert one of the on-street parking spaces to that if it becomes a demand.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that because it's, just traveling in like 3 trips within the last week. I'm in and out of airports and in and out of buildings, and I think designated spots is very valuable, especially with all these concerns about Dixie.
Yeah, I mean, is there a valet component or anything like that? There's no. All right. Okay, so we'll probably have more questions. So we'll, real quick, any public comment on this case? Anyone from the audience want to speak to this? Okay, we're seeing none. We'll close public discussion and just go ahead and continue our discussion. Anyone want to have any specific
Yeah,
comments?
I'll just add, I think this is a great, it's a great project. I like it, but I have some concern as my colleagues with the traffic. By any chance, I guess as part of this presentation, at least some type of traffic volume report could have been shared with us, because you are adding capacity, but you're not really sharing how is that being solved, or by just showing the entrance, it's really hard for us to kind of assess the congestion that will be added, because South Dixie is a 2-lane street, and really by default you are going to get a bottleneck on that roadway. So I think the traffic pattern here, it really doesn't really, it adds more burden on the roadway, and so I'm still not comfortable with it as where the entrance on Dixie, even for trucks access, as my colleague shared. I think there's a lot of conflict zone on that project for the traffic flow. Even like a circulation map would have been at least shared with us to see the pattern here. It's really not evident on how the traffic flow is from the street to the building. Even emergency vehicles, I don't think there's enough being shared for the traffic conflicts that's being shown here.
I do want to point out that they did provide the letter from the county, and also they provided a traffic analysis that was reviewed by the traffic engineer in the city, and it was approved by them too.
Yeah, the city engineers reviewed all this, right? And traffic. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Greg?
That's fine. That's all I have.
Sam, you got anything? No. Nick?
Just a bunch of questions, I guess. So if the parking for Johann Joe's is in the garage, can someone just explain, like, if somebody comes into the garage and parks, how do they walk and get to that building?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same thing.
So they would park along these areas, and then there's also these areas on the second floor. But if you can see, there's a door right here, and then there's a ramp going down the side of the garage, and then they can walk through this nice public open space into the entrance to this building.
So that gray section, you're ramping up at that point, right where
Yes,
where
this-
your cursor is, and the parking garage for the parking spaces?
Correct. And there is a grade change on this slope, Chair Jansen, that it all levels out. So as soon as you walk out of that door, there is a ramp that goes out.
So which of the first spaces, just as you are off the main entrance there to the south, parallel to Dixie, are those for, yeah, right in that area? Is that for?
This area?
Is that for the Johans?
This would be as well for commercial.
Yeah.
So essentially, the entirety of the first and second floor are for commercial, whether it's the new commercial or the existing commercial. And then as you get up to the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth floor of the garage, that's all for the residential.
And then if I could I ask the landscape architect to just give a brief overview of the planting around the perimeter of the project with regard to the streetscapes and the hardscapes and the amenities, and then also relative to the sizes of the planting going in. I know the perspective and the rendering show some future growth, but could you just talk about maybe the size and specs of what the planting is?
Sure. So all around the perimeter of the property, we are working with staff, and we've agreed to provide native grasses that can acclimate to the hardy traffic of vehicles driving past it. And then let me just, to give you exact measurements of the proposed landscape material, give me 1 second.
I guess it was a question for staff too on the trees. Just to refresh my memory, does the downtown master plan projects require you to plant structural soils for these street trees? Is that part of the code or the requirement?
We are providing the structural soil. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
And then all trees that we are proposing throughout the site, the standard spec that we have is at a minimum of 12-foot height with a 2-inch DPH. So they are quite established, larger scale trees to be installed at first installation.
Wasn't there a requirement that the trees had to be bigger in the downtown area? I thought there was a requirement for, was it 21 feet or 20 feet at one time, or 14 feet? I thought there was something other than a 12-foot.
For the shade trees along the streetscape, there is a minimum requirement of 20 feet, if I recall correctly. So yes, they are taller than usual.
Okay.
Then
And they'll be planted in structural soils, which I think has been working great from the examples by Banyan and the Channel 5 building. Those oak trees are planted in like this teeny little green area in structural soils, and they look great. So thank you for verifying that. And did you also say the pavers are pervious pavers, such that you're going to collect water or substrate, or they're impervious and you're going to sheet flow the stormwater?
The pavers are pervious. The water is not being collected. However, the pavers will allow the water to percolate through to below the soil.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one other question for landscape about the rainwater collection. Do you have rainwater collection on site?
No, we
On
do
the
not.
roof? Okay. And then one other question for parking. Are there EV parking stalls, ADA, EV, or any designated EV parking?
not EV, but they are required to provide a certain amount for ADA spaces.
So ADA, but no electric vehicle
No, not
currently?
electric vehicles.
Okay.
There's not a requirement from the city to provide that.
Nice. Okay.
May I have a comment for staff on the parking? Mr. Chairman, may I have
I'm
one
sorry,
other
I'm
comment
sorry.
for staff on the parking, please? It's not for this project per se, but currently there's 1 or 2 spots on Dixie parking right outside of CVS, and it's been creating a bottleneck, and not only uncomfortable, but like already dangerous already without this project. Is on Dixie, so every time I drive down south, like on Dixie, there's like 1 or 2 parking space, and then even big trucks park there too, and then it become 2 lanes again. So if you could please review that and eliminate those even before this project come online, because currently it's already dangerous.
On
So-
Clematis and
On Dixie, right outside of CVS. And, you know, with this Dixie, you know, it's gonna be so much more congested, so currently it's already bad. So if you could please kind of go back and review, work with traffic, the traffic people.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a
Sorry,
comment.
Mr. Green, go ahead, yeah.
Rick Green, Development Services Director. Yeah, I just don't want it to get lost with this board that we spent an inordinate amount of time with the applicant when he was proposing a 25-story building, and probably an equal amount of time when he came in with the plan that's before you tonight or today. As you're used to, we usually have applicants that come in with many waivers and variances. They are meeting the code exactly as prescribed, so I don't want that to be lost. And then, as Hunter mentioned earlier, again, this is the first project utilizing the downtown workforce housing incentive we adopted in 2021. Several applicants have purchased their workforce units and paid into a fund. This is the first one that's actually providing them on site. So I want to applaud the developer for all the hard work working with my staff. We love the project, and we'd love to see it move forward.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Rick. And we're assuming the previous project had abandoned that alleyway as well, right? The Cosmo. Thanks. Okay. Anyone else? Michael?
Oh, 1 second. I just want to verify, the commercial units will also use that loading zone? They'll be allowed to use that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Brad, you got anything else?
One clarification on, the city has reviewed the traffic and approved it. Isn't this particular district a district where the traffic congestion is not taken into account? I'm probably misstating that, but there's something about this district where, if you could give me the words, I know you know what I'm trying to say.
Certainly, yes. Everything within the downtown is contained within what is known as a TCEA. That stands for Transportation Concurrency Exception Area. So that allows intersections, and particularly links, to fail. But certainly, despite the fact that you could be operating at a level of service F at intersections or links, we still look at the traffic as part of the PPRC. We do have a traffic engineer conducting that review, so we can make site-specific recommendations to improve circulation around it. But technically, we still ask for a letter from Palm Beach County, which we received on this project. And to the point that Claudia mentioned at the outset with the downtown master plan, hand in hand with that, we are also doing a downtown traffic study because there is a certain finite level of development downtown that we can achieve, and we're rapidly getting to that number. But it's a TCA is the terminology that we use.
That's the one I was trying to say. What I was wondering is if their letter was something along the lines of, yes, this complies with the TCA, which would essentially say,
that's generally what all projects downtown say. That because
the TCA proposes no restrictions. It just says you can fail.
Because the downtown is within a TCEA, but on occasion, the county may still suggest changes, but recognize that it is within the TCA downtown.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Just one last question. I'm not sure on how the applicant, because we are in the downtown close to transit, has that factor into the project for reducing the traffic congestion as far as parking space? Was there like a reduction in parking requirements that you I mean, I know you meet the requirement based on the code, but my point is, because we are so close to transit, was that factor in to say we'll voluntarily reduce parking spaces? Just want to clarify that, if that was factored in.
Yes, typically we try to hit a ratio of 1.75 to 1.8 on the residential side, and we've taken that down to 1.5 here from a marketability standpoint because we are so close to the Bright Line and where we are in the downtown.
Okay. That's all.
All right, thanks, Greg. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, generally very nice project. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Again, thanks to staff, because I know you guys, between the applicant staff, put a lot of time into vetting a lot of this before we even see it. So thank you for that. Nice project. So in terms of the site plan, we've already discussed some areas of my concern, and I would just, in concept, I think this is a great project and would encourage sort of the moving this on, but I'd love to come back and see some further study, like I mentioned before, on that south elevation specifically. the aesthetics and the materials of how that all is going to manifest itself to the sidewalk, the doors, et cetera, because right now I just have the feeling it's going to be like some of the others with a lot of painted metal doors, and it's not going to be so pretty. So with a landscape and hardscape and that elevation, so I'd like to see more detail on that. Same on that whole section we were describing between Johann's and the garage building. That whole, I think that could be a really wonderful space. Right now I'm concerned it's going to be sort of a forgotten little service alley. So if we could see some more elevations or delineation and details specifically to that whole zone on the sort of the middle north section and then as it runs out to Dixie. And the architecture, I think it's very interesting architecture for a big, massive building block. The articulation is done very well. I would highly encourage staying away from the grays. We're in a tropical environment, and the grays to me are just very depressing. The big gray building that just went up over in the by the train station, I think the colors, again, the grays are going to fade, and it's just somewhat of a depressing color. So I highly encourage you, or would even make it a condition of approval, to not have the grays on the paint on the stuccos. But other than that, I like the way the architectural team sort of really manipulated the facade with the curvilinear balconies. And it's made a very intriguing situation. The relationship to Johann's very respectful. And going back to all the traffic, we can only just make assumption that engineering teams and traffic studies have vetted out all the circulation, but it is a concern. I'm glad there's no gates because you won't have the stacking problems there. So those are my general observations. I think it's a great project. But I would like to see a few of those things come back, even if we do approve it today, at either next month or the month after, to see the design development of those areas to make sure they're really done well, especially for the public spaces. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend the renderings too. You know, when you look in 2D versus 3D, you really get a different feel for it, especially with those curves, and the elevation looked dark to me, but the perspective what you'll have on the street really feels cool and funky and light, and so I appreciate those.
Yeah. Okay. So, unless there's any other questions or comments, is anyone?
May I have one on the affordable workforce units? Yes, I commend the applicant for actually building the units rather than paying lieu. So will the compliance of the AMIs and the income of the tenants, will that be monitored by the housing office, Jennifer Farrell's office, or how will that work?
Yes, all of the details will be part of the agreement, and that will be drafted in coordination with the housing
Okay, great.
and community development.
Okay, great. And
Department.
just and then just one more comment on the school concurrency. I know we've ran across this issue some other times, or I understand the staff, the department does not want to make it a condition for granting approval, but I would like the applicant to commit to paying the school concurrency fee. I mean, that's just part of all the, so can we maybe have it like a formal commitment?
Yes, the applicant does commit to contributing the recommended amount in the SCAD letter, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think I can craft a motion with those conditions if there are no other comments.
Yeah, I just want to verify, I believe there's a quorum today, so I don't vote.
I don't.
Confirm it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 23-13 as listed in the staff report dated June 5th, 2024 with the following conditions. The final design of the architectural treatment shall be brought back to city staff for final approval before issuing the building permit to ensure that the materials proposed will visually screen non-active uses and are integrated with the surrounding areas. 2, the final design of the driveways along South Dixie Highway and Gardenia Street shall be evaluated before issuing building permit to ensure all safety measures are provided and that the negative impact of the driveways on the pedestrian environment is reduced. Sidewalks elevation shall be maintained across the driveways. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review request satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Article 2, Section 94-54B2 with the following conditions. 1, the service alley behind Johann Joe's will be studied for its aesthetics with regarding landscape, hardscape, lighting, building materials, finishes, door colors, awnings from views from Dixie. 2, the south elevation will be studied with regard to the same aesthetics relative to the functionality of utilities, above grade pipes, colors of materials, finishes, doors, hardscapes, etc.
Okay.
Second that
Pretty
motion.
good. So motion, anyone have any second or?
I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, motion second, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And then, is there a separate one for the alley?
Yeah, you should have also
There
the,
it is, yeah, granting the alley abandonment recommendation. Does anyone want to make a motion on the alley?
Sure, Mr. Chair, I'll move that the Downtown Action Committee recommend approval for the recommendation of the alley abandonment as listed in the staff report dated January 5th, 2024. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competence substantial evidence. The Downtown Action Committee hereby makes findings of fact that the alley abandonment requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Chapter 78, Article 7.
And would you be willing just to add those two conditions to that as well, since it's specifically relative to the alley abandonment?
Sure.
Just repeat, just
The
include
same
the same two
conditions as
conditions
before.
on that approval as well. Is there a second or any other discussion?
Yeah, second.
Any other further discussion? Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you all. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2, formal site plan review, case number 23-12.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
I'll need to recuse myself from this case. New case number 23-12 as part of the NORA development team.
okay,
Likewise, I have to recuse.
okay. Perfect. I think we got plenty here. Thank you, guys. All right. Yep. Request by Zach Young, Young Capital Ventures LLC on behalf of Nora Hotel and LLC. And this is for special review, abandonment, a portion of 11th Street. So we go ahead and hear the applicant's request. Thank you.
Also, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I know I was late, so I want to put on record that I had no ex parte communication with anyone.
Oh, good. Thanks for reminding me. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And the record shows that Gregory is present.
Good morning. Meredith Lay again with Shetson Bowen, here on behalf of the owner, Nora Hotel Owner LLC, to present to you the Nora Hotel. Really excited about this project. This is the project's design team. They're here today if you have any questions for them specific to their area of discipline. So the Nora project is going to be one of the first taller developments in the Nora district. As it's coming up out of the ground, most of what has been approved and permitted are 2 to 3 story structures. The Nora Hotel will be 5 stories. And the hotel itself, the hotelier is BD Hotels. Nora developers have partnered with BD Hotels on this, so it's not going to be a hotel chain like a Hilton or a Marriott. Not that there's anything wrong with those, it's just BD Hotels was the right fit for this development. BD Hotels is a real estate ownership and development company. They specialize in hotel and hospitality. They have a fine portfolio in New York City of some of the very well-known boutique-style hotels that include the Mercer, the Bowery, the Ludlow, the Marlton Hotel, the infamous Chelsea Hotel, or Hotel Chelsea. Has a bright future, though. So here on the side, I just want to show you just a real quick picture of the type of finishes that can be expected for the Nora Hotel. This is of the Hotel Chelsea. Specific to the request is a DAC special review and a street right-of-way abandonment. The DAC special review is for the site plan for a 5-story hotel that includes 201 rooms and about 500 square feet of ground floor retail. There's also going to be the typical accessory uses that you find in a hotel, like food and beverage operation, a spa, a gym, etc. There are, on the side here on the slide, I wanted to show you just a few of the images that you can expect for the interior. This is what has been imagined for the interior and lobbies, the guest bath, and the lobby bar, to give you an idea of the types of finishes and the feel that the hotel will bring. One thing about BD hotels is that they are really good at embodying the sense of history and place of a neighborhood in which it is in, and integrating that into a beautiful design. The alleyway itself, or the street right-of-way, I'm sorry, before I move on, the street abandonment itself is only for the western portion of 11th Street. It's about 6,300 square feet. And the street abandonment standards are a little bit different from an alleyway abandonment, whereas an alleyway abandonment, you'd have to integrate that square footage into the design, into the site plan as open space. That same standard does not exist for just a public street right-of-way abandonment. So here is the site plan for it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the project architect at this point, Elvira, who will walk you through the site plan and architectural design of it.
Thank you.
Good morning. I do need to be sworn in.
Anyone else? No. Okay.
Is there anyone else? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning. Elvira Freire Santa Maria, project manager and architect with Stantec. Thank you, Meredith. As Meredith mentioned, it's a 5-story hotel with 201 guest rooms. I'll walk you through the plans in the program, and then we'll get into the architecture further along in the presentation. So as you can see here, the project is bordered by the North Railroad Avenue on the north, 11th Street on the west. You have the FEC easement and the railroad on the south, and there's an existing building on the east side. Just a quick section to walk you through how the building is programmed. As Meredith mentioned, on the ground floor, you have the lobby for the hotel, restaurant, you have the spa and the gym, and then behind, so the ground floor is double height, and behind the ground floor, you have a mezzanine parking space. I'll get into the number of parking spaces further along. You have guest suites from floors 2 through 5. The larger guest suites are on level 5 with an amenity roof, pools, cabanas, and another restaurant up on the amenity deck as well. And the amenity deck, it was on the previous slide, is at 68 feet. So again, on the ground floor, the North Railroad Avenue is your primary frontage. You have entrances into the restaurant. You'll have entrance into the lobby, hotel lobby, as well as the gym and spa areas. You have the restaurant, which will be a world-renowned restaurant. And then towards the back and towards the southwest side are all the back of house facing the railroad easement. Also on 11th Street is the entrance and exit from the parking garage, and I'll go and move on to the mezzanine. The parking garage is 100% valet, 80 parking spaces. We do have EV parking spaces in the parking garage, and it is both for the restaurant as well as for the hotel. And again, you'll see on this next slide how we are hiding the parking behind the ground floor. So the loggia and the arcade of the ground floor actually goes and encloses the mezzanine parking. And these two slides are just to show that you're not seeing the parking from North Railroad Avenue. And then on the rooftop, as I mentioned before, you have pools, pool cabanas, there's a lounge area, a bar. One of the things that I did want to mention is that this project is the first one, one of the first ones, to test the recently adopted zoning text change of the definition of covered structures. If you recall, the enclosed maximum without being considered a story, an additional story, is 35%. And with this project, we're complying with 33%. total proposed roof coverage. Another standard also is the maximum of the covered structures allowed along the primary frontage. That maximum is 26, and right here we're showing that we're at 26% for the roofs. We also have other additional mechanical rooms and restrooms for the pool and the restaurant on this level. And then the architecture, I'm going to move on to the next slide. The architecture, inspired by the Mediterranean architecture, the Nora Hotel draws reference from the architectural style and precedents established within the downtown West Palm Beach and Palm Beach, implementing a high arched colonnade, as you'll see on the ground floor, along the main street, stone cladding at the building's podium, and the use of clay and barrel tiles at the roof and at the amenity levels. Stylistically similar to the finishes and styling found in surrounding single-family homes in the district. This allows the hotel to act as a visual go-between the existing context of the neighborhood with a contemporary vision as the district future development begins to unfold and take shape. While the hotel takes advantage of the full length of the site, any potential monotony in the mass is relieved by the introduction of 5 vertical towers framed in smooth stucco finish, painted in contemporary color in contrast to the continuous scored stucco along the length of the building at the base. The mass of the building is further relieved in section with the building setback starting at level 2 and then again at level 5, with opportunities for, we have high arched windows, balconies, and metalwork also. We also have trims around all of, we've articulated all of the openings. There are brackets and along the eaves and the balconies. So there's a lot of articulation and movement within the facade so that it is not, because it is a long facade, so that it is not monotonous and you know, without depth. And I'll just go on. This is the view from the east. So as you're looking at it from North Railroad Avenue, this is a view from the northeast. Again, you'll see the arched openings, the trims, the articulation of the eaves on the roof. Here you'll see, actually, and let me go back. Let me see if I can go back. This is where you'll have a trellis at level 2, so these rooms will have balconies at level 2, and again, the larger hotel rooms on the level 5 will also have balconies, and that elevation sets back, and then you have the amenity behind here. And then this is the view from the southeast, from the railroad, back of house areas, but still articulating that facade, not ignoring it, and still paying attention to the detail in the architecture. And this is the view from the southeast. Again, with the corner smooth stucco bands, the articulation of the loggia and the arched, I forgot to mention also that the restaurant on the ground floor, you will have seating, outdoor seating in that loggia area for the restaurant. And I think I'll turn it over to Meredith.
Thank you.
So I'm going to get back into a little bit more technical stuff before closing out. This project, just to give you a little bit more context, this project is located at the southwest corner of 11th Street and North Railroad Avenue. To the north and to the south are all, and to the east are properties owned by affiliates of the developer of this project. To the west is the FEC Railroad right-of-way, which is owned by the Florida East Coast Railway. It's in the Nora 5 subdistrict, so the maximum height allowed is 5 stories, and the maximum allowed FAR is 2.75. This project comes right at both of those thresholds, comes in it. So the total site area is 1.14 acres, which equates to about 49,658. So because it's not a historic district, it's less than 50,000 square feet. There are no variances that accompany this. This project we were able to accomplish this entire project without the need for any variances or deviations from the code. So really the primary reason why we are before you today is because it does include the street right-of-way abandonment. And that area is outlined here in blue. Specific to the street right-of-way, it's about 6,300 square feet, and it begins right at the western boundary of North Railroad Avenue, continues to the FEC Railway, outlined here in red. The area in yellow is, hatched in yellow is the area that is going to be incorporated into the site plan. As you saw on the plans, there's not going to be no portion of the building will be in that right of way. It really will just be occupied with streetscaping and trees, and the entrance to the parking garage. But having that area in the site plan allows us the flexibility as far as building square footage goes. The property is not an incentive receiving area, so there's no other way to increase the amount of square footage that would have been allowed by right. But with that, this project does comply, we believe, with the DAC standards for special review. The circulation and flow, access to the parking garage will be off of North 11th Street on the western end, and so that will keep Railroad Avenue free from cars parking or stopping to turn into a parking garage. The relationship to the buildings and the surrounding sites, this is a transitional site from between what would be permitted on the properties to the north, much higher rise buildings in between, to this 5-story building, because all the properties to the south of it are being developed right now with 1, 2, and 3-story buildings. The building design we just spoke to, the Mediterranean style, which is common down here throughout South Florida, and the public realm will be addressed through the colonnade. We have the streetscaping, which is part of a separate application for the North Railroad Avenue streetscape face of the city application. So all of that will be addressed. And so we believe that we comply. Staff is in agreement in their staff report and their analysis that the project does comply with the standards for special review and for the street right-of-way abandonment. An appraisal was submitted to the city for the amount for the street right-of-way, and the applicant has agreed to that amount. And so with that, we are thankful for staff's recommendation of approval. There are no conditions that we found in the staff report, but staff and the project team have been working very hard on this project for over the course of the last year to get this to this point. And so staff is also recommending approval of the right-of-way abandonment as well. With that, we would request as well your recommendation of approval of the right-of-way and your approval of the special review. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. I guess we'll hear from staff. Chris. Be right back.
Good morning, everyone. Chris Kimmerly, Urban Design Planner. Just to reiterate, this request is for the special review and approval of the hotel, as well as the recommendation for the right-of-way abandonment on 11th Street. It should be noted, and Meredith touched on this, that the project is not requesting any variances. There are no outstanding issues with this. This would have been an administrative approval at a staff level had it not had the right-of-way abandonment. So that is why it's before you today. Touching base on the 4 standards of special review, staff is recommending approval, and that the findings that the petition does meet all standards of the special review, and I will touch base on them here. So starting with the first one, the relationship of the building to the site and surroundings. The building scale and mass are compatible to the district as well as the area. Again, this project does fall within our maximum height allowance of 5 stories or 68 feet. The project does come in at that. And we allow an additional 20 feet for any mechanical encroachments. The project does utilize that, so some of the mechanical roof areas do project up to 88 feet. The project is consistent with the development of the district. It's oriented well, it meets all setbacks, and it does provide a continuous frontage on North Railroad Avenue. The project integrates a single level of parking. This is within that interstitial space between a double-heighted first floor, and this was brought to you before in September on a code change, and then we finalized that in November. So this is the first iteration and project that will be utilizing this. The project does serve as sort of a capstone to the Nora 5 district. As Meredith had said, much of the southern Nora 5 properties are 1 to 2 or even 3-story adaptive reuses and smaller developments. So this really is, as you can see on this map here, the first 5-story. And I just wanted to highlight here that the incentive districts for the properties to the north and to the east do allow for higher development. So we do allow up to 8 stories directly east. We allow 20 and 15 to the north there in the northeast. It should be also noted that the public realm is improved. There's continuous 8-foot wide minimum sidewalks. In some areas, this is widened to 10 or 12, depending on the undulation between tree grates and parking spaces. There's shade trees, there's bicycle infrastructure, there's micromobility. There is a bright bike station that will be located directly across the street in front of the hotel. And there's additional on-street parking spaces which may or may not be utilized for valet, depending on the hotel's operation and needs. Looking into the circulation and traffic flow, again, the parking is internal to the hotel structure. It's well integrated within the architecture. It's, you know, a seamless design between what is active and non-active in that building. There is bike storage on site for staff or employees and such to utilize, and there will also be bicycle parking within the right-of-way for any visitors. The loading and sanitation access is located along the FEC service court. So I'm just going to jump to that real quick. So behind much of the North Railroad Avenue developments, there is a span of FEC right-of-way or property that goes from 7th Street all the way up to 11th Street behind the western buildings of North Railroad Avenue. The applicant does have a lease agreement with the FEC, and there is a separate application and site plan being processed for this sort of back-of-house service court. So all of the western businesses loading will occur in the service court area. An additional controlled access for employees. So the employee parking will be located behind here as well. This again alleviates much of the district from supplying parking for employees and such, and that way the few surface parking lots within the district and each subsequent building can self-park the rest of the district. So this is kind of a bonus space, and that is where some of the hotel's loading and sanitation access will be provided as well. Again, as I mentioned, on-street parking is presented in front of the hotel, which may allow for valet operations in the future or rideshare services. And again, the public realm is also well landscaped. The parking for this project, it does have 80 spaces within that internal garage. This is well within our ratio, which is 1 space per 4 rooms is the minimum, and then 1 space for every 800 square feet of accessory hotel uses such as retail or restaurant. So it does meet that requirements. They currently have a surplus of 19 spaces over the minimum. So they're again well within the ratios there. Moving on to the building design, again, the facade articulation, fenestration, planar breaks, transparency requirements are met. They're continuous on that North Railroad Avenue facade. It is a very Mediterranean influenced contemporary building. It does provide kind of a upscale contrast to the southern buildings of the Nora district, which are again adaptive reuse of some industrial garages and structures. So this is a nice unique contrast to that. It does maintain again architectural design and material treatments across all of its active facades. And it does an excellent job of screening the non-active parking garage. The building mass itself is broken up into these kind of 5 separate little towers with recessed areas, utilizing a covered arcade on the ground floor for the restaurant and lobby areas. And again, it utilizes some of that code language that we amended in September and November where they have a very active rooftop providing additional amenity space, as well as a food and beverage operator. Looking at the public realm, all active use requirements are met. Approximately 91% of the hotel's frontage on North Railroad Avenue is all active. Again, there's a covered arcade area and terraces for the restaurant use as well as general hotel operations. The streetscape is met in the site plan, but it should also be noted that North Railroad Avenue itself is a face of the city. There is an extension that would be going to City Commission for approval that approved the portion that was from 7th Street to 10th. So the remainder from 10th to 11th is going to City Commission in the near future. But again, that application allowed for the tree grades, the sidewalk widths, and so forth. So the site plan does match those standards. And again, it should be noted that this is kind of a catalyst development within the Nora 5 district, as the north and east are vacant lots currently, or may have vacant residential structures. So this is good to see some activity moving northward along the North Railroad Avenue corridor. Regarding the right-of-way abandonment, Anderson and Carr was the appraiser hired by the city to conduct the appraisal. The original appraisal came in just shy of $285,000. There are city utilities within this portion of the 11th Street right-of-way, and due to that, the city is retaining a drainage and utility easement over a majority of this right-of-way. It's good in the sense that there's no direct structures or anything built upon it. The road as it exists will essentially remain. It will serve as a access point for the FEC, but it's also the access point to the garage. So there's no real structural change to this, but the city is retaining an easement, and therefore the a value has been adjusted to just around $171,000, and the applicant has agreed to pay that value. And again, here's just some more context of that little terminus portion of 11th Street that is being requested for the abandonment. And with that, staff does recommend approval regarding the special review, as it meets all the standards of Section 9454B2. And in regarding the right-of-way abandonment, staff recommends approval based on the petition meeting Land Development Regulations, Chapter 78, Article 7. And then I have provided some suggested motions, but if there are any other questions, I'll be happy to take them.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Very thorough. Anyone, any immediate questions, or come back later for staff? Brian?
I have a question. Did you think about the warehouse, the adaptive reuse of the Cemex warehouse on the site?
Which, you mean the structure that's on the north?
Yeah, that's existing. Was that, because I know the Nora project's a lot of adaptive reuse.
We did not.
We did not. What is that structure? It doesn't look like it's much value to it.
Yeah.
What is it now currently?
And the parking with the envelope, is it naturally ventilated, or are you minimizing the mechanical ventilation?
Good morning, Zach Young, by the way, part of the development team. It is mechanically ventilated. As you can see, there's not much open space there to allow for open air ventilation.
Okay. And is there EV parking at all?
We do. We have 17 EV spaces with infrastructure to expand that in the future if needed.
Okay. And have you thought about art spaces or sculptural gardens on the ground floor, maybe some green garden spaces or vias maybe cutting through? Or
so we have been working closely with the city for over a year now. The hotel's art and public places component will be satisfied with the adaptive reuse portion of Nora to the south. So we've got several concepts and ideas in progress now that will encapsulate the art and public places component for the Phase 1 Nora adaptive reuse piece, as well as the hotel.
Interesting. I'd like to see those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple comment cards. If anyone else wants to comment, just make sure you fill out a card, bring it up. But we'll go ahead. We've heard from the applicant and staff. We'll take public comment now. We'll start with Jennifer Reed. And if you just kindly stand up to the microphone, and I have your address here as 433 11th Street.
Good morning, Downtown Action Committee. My name is Jennifer Reed. I live at 433 11th Street, which is the street that they're proposing I think it's the easement or whatever at the end. And the form that I received from the city said it was an alley, and it has never been an alley. It's the actual street, which I live on. And the problem that I have is the traffic. You know, I have a grandson, and he's 4. And I had to call the police several times about the speeding to go do whatever they were doing down there. And then that's one of the concerns that I have about it. You know, if they building a hotel, that's fine. And really, I didn't know what they were building, you know, but the problem that I'm having is the, excuse me, the traffic. And also on 11th Street is 3 people live on 11th Street, and then 1 live around the corner. And one of them he's disabled. So the concern I'm having is the traffic going down there. And I live directly right there in the middle of 11th Street. And so that is my concern, and about how they're gonna handle the traffic. And they saying that you're going in with their, the workers and stuff, they're going in, that's right on 11th Street. So I saw that they said that you're gonna put their vehicles and bikes or whatever in the garage, but if there's more than 80 cars, where are they gonna go at? Because that's the city street. So I want to be able to park my vehicle, my husband's vehicle, on this road. So I want to make sure they don't block anything, block my home. And so that is my concern, and I hope they can answer that question for me.
Thank you very much. I think
Thank you.
staff could probably address that quickly. I guess, and maybe you could just explain property ownership to the north, adjacent to the proposed abandonment, and then how that these safety concerns could be addressed by the city in terms of traffic control, et cetera, to help address those issues of the concerns of the neighbor.
Yeah, so I think this is a good aerial to provide some context. So the only piece that is being subject to the abandonment is that little terminus portion of 11th Street. For the hotel's operations, they are completely self-parked, so the hotel will provide all its parking on site. The property that you see outlined here between or even with the alleyway, this is in for a separate site plan approval. I believe it has actually been already granted. We've gone through the process for that. It is a surface parking lot, a temporary surface parking lot that provides an additional 165 parking spaces. Because once we did the original face of the city for North Railroad Avenue, we got rid of a lot of the on-street parking on North Railroad Avenue. So this is now being accommodated within a surface parking lot and a separate site plan. In terms of on-street parking for the residential streets, 11th Street, 10th, 9th, 8th, all those streets currently allow and will continue to allow on-street parking for residents. The district and the NORA applicants on the eastern side of North Railroad Avenue, a little bit further south here, there is 2 additional surface parking lots as well. I think the aggregate of those 2 lots provides an additional 80 parking spaces, or just about. And then with the changes to the face of the city, North Railroad Avenue, we are integrating a couple additional on-street spaces as well. So there is continuous parking. You know, as these projects and these properties come online, the initial concept is, again, that they will be self-parked as their projects, and there may be some, you know, looking to accommodating district parking as well, so to alleviate some of the surface parking.
All right, thanks. Maybe just make a note with your traffic and signage and safety concerns. So
yeah, absolutely.
Striping, however you typically would do it with safety, with the engineering department. So,
and it should be noted, you know, North Railroad Avenue is a curbless design. It will have landscape buffers. It'll have bollards for pedestrians. There'll be new lighting installed with this. So there are improvements happening along North Railroad Avenue and the corner here as well. And again, as each property comes online with future developments, they will be required to meet the streetscape and landscape requirements as well.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next on the card, Ledian Weathershe? Okay, Weathershe, thank you. And 433 11th Street? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm
morning.
calling because I'm really disgusted and kind of aggravated, so I'm trying to turn it down a notch. Grew up there, and we know progress is going to happen. But when you disrespect the people that live there, and you do the project, you start the project, yeah, you apply for it, but you started. I wonder if any one of you all had the opportunity to go around in the area to look and see. They got trash and stuff. They're coming from Railroad Avenue, dumping it on the corner, 11th and Spruce, and putting fences and stuff up, and putting all kind of stuff up, which I have, shame on you, City of West Palm. I have emailed them the title list and calling everything, no response. Then when they did get a response, it was like a ghost. Really didn't really say anything, but someone needs to stop, get out of their cars, come by. I even invited them. A couple of people did come, quote unquote, gave fines because they're doing all the project on Railroad Avenue, dumping everything over there. It looks a hot mess, and like nobody lives there. And we asked some of the people coming, and a lot of times they're parking, those big heavy trucks are coming and doing work on Railroad Avenue. They're parking and blocking our driveway and stuff, and they're loading up and everything. Disrespectful. Nobody seems to know who's in charge. And to be honest, the people said, I can't fault the workers because they said no one lived over there. That's not true. Shame on the developer or the city. Shame on them. It's disrespectful. And we do matter. We lived over there, a little girl, and still just don't understand why all this project, and then going to build these buildings, and people can't breathe, environment. And this is a hot mess. I invite you all. I'll take you in my car so you can take a ride around and look. It's a mess. And it's coming from Railroad Avenue. They already started the project. Well, they're applying for it now, but they already started. Putting trash and everything everywhere. It's a hot mess. And then when you can't contact the city, everybody wants to throw it around here, this person in charge, this person in charge. And then here, the one guy did come out and he fined him. Well, and I read the ordinance, and then you got signs saying people cannot walk here, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they're blocking the sidewalk for some of the homeless people. People just walking. Where are they gonna walk? And walk in the street and you go around the corner, 11th and Spruce, you turn around, it's an accident happened. And I told anybody, if you have an accident, let me know, I'll be a witness. Because it's blinders there, they got blinders. It's a hot mess. Okay. And and then they wanna build all this stuff. The city is not like it used to be. And most people that are making all these changes are not from here. I grew up here, I'm a native. And it is a mess. And I go drive around, it's a hot mess. One day, I just say, it has to get better. It's the city of West Palm, they say, beautiful city of West Palm, it's not beautiful anymore. It's horrible. It is horrible. I'm 61 years old, and it's horrible. I'll be 62 this year. But go around and I would take it in my car. People need to go around and look in the neighborhood. You don't stay in the neighborhood, so you excuse me. You need to go around and look at it. And I know you all had to vote, but you need to really go and see and have the staff to really tell the truth. Because somebody's not telling the truth. I don't know who's in bed with who, but somebody's not telling. The wrath is coming.
All right, thanks for your comments and concerns. Maybe we could have someone from staff just sort of talk to code enforcement and what the standards would be for, project containment, fencing, safety, security, cleanliness, and I'm sure there's standards and guidelines, and let's make sure that they're followed there, okay? I'm sure the developer wants to do the right thing. Thank you. Any other comments from anyone else in the public? Okay, thanks for those that took the time to make your comments. We appreciate it. We'll then close public discussion and go back to committee members for any questions of staff or the applicant. So this abandonment, this is just like the one we just saw. This is a standard process, sale, agreement. Okay, so on and so forth. I have no concerns with it, other than we'll address these cleanliness and safety issues for the neighborhood, make sure it's done in a proper fashion. Anyone else have any questions to the applicant?
Just a real quick question on the EVs, understanding that it's not code requirement on the previous project. I guess we can talk maybe a little bit about that later, but they have 0 EV and there's 17 here, and I guess the 17 are just based on the developer's market opinion of this is the amount we need. So I think we can talk about the other thing later, but that just struck me. So it sounds like it's not required, but there's a need and the developer has it in part of their program, and so that sounds good to me.
Okay. Kim, Mike, Brian, anything?
I just have a comment on the traffic. So is this outside of the urban mobility plans? You know, the DDA have the circuits and other kind of car share, free little shuttles that drive people. I think that's within the downtown boundary, but maybe the staff and the applicant can work with that urban mobility to expand that reach to reduce the cars that have to be driven to and from the hotel.
Yeah, certainly. I'm not 100% sure whether or not it's within the current circuit boundaries, but I do understand that, the city and West Palm Beach Go is looking at expanding and configuring our transportation mobility options. It should also be noted that the applicant and the developer have been working with city staff and city traffic engineering. They have provided us preliminary traffic studies on a master plan level, as they have abundance of projects coming in and properties. So we're looking at it as, as comprehensively as possible for a district-wide traffic plan as each phase comes online. So the first phase being the adaptive reuse of the structures on North Railroad Avenue, and that impacts. Phase 2 is the hotel and, possibly the eastern property fronting it, and then phase 3, 4 later on, the northern properties, and looking into that. So we're constantly working with the applicant. They're providing revisions to that transportation master plan, and as part of that, we may look into TDMs, expanding routes, so forth.
And I have a question. What you're talking about, the DDA came up. I had heard that there's interest by the Nora district in joining the DDA. Does the city know anything about that?
I was not aware of that. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? I have some just general questions for the architecture. I don't know if we could bring up a couple images of those perspective elevation views. It's kind of relative to the use of the roof elements and your tower components. Yeah, I think in general, it's a very elegant building. The massing is well done and articulated. It's just, these are more detailed questions. I think just in general, if you're kind of going to go for the historical Mediterranean revival, I would just sort of focus on some of the detailing. The eaves look very heavy. I'm not sure why they're so heavy. Some of the coining, it looks like you've got rustication in between your smooth corners versus corner coins and smooth in between. So maybe look at the breakers and the Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables. There's just thousands of examples of that type of detailing. Okay. And in the arcades at the bottom, maybe you go to some of the true rustication on the arches there. Again, if you're going to go that way, maybe just lean a little more traditional with it. Like some of those big brackets on the eave on the upper level seem a little bit superfluous, or really not holding anything up. Just want to try and get away from the building where you're just sort of sticking the foam detailing on the outside and get a little more true to some of the historical typologies.
We'll take a look at that.
I think in general, it's a very handsome building.
Thank you.
And so just going to these mirror doors, the midsection is great because your massing is going from less openings on the bottom, like your Romanesque, basically very open and light on the top, but the corners are very, very heavy. I see the one has a stairwell in the corner on the southeast tower.
On the, one of them is a mechanical enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a mechanical enclosure, and then the other is the lounge area.
Okay. Oh, it's different from the rest. So you do have a little is that an elevator equipment shaft that comes up onto the roof there?
This area.
Is that equipment?
That is, so this is the lounge area, and this is the elevator and the stair. That's why this is solid here. That's correct. It's the elevator and the stair that are going up.
Okay. Oh, it's good to see you have some detail around that equipment. Well, and the balconies, again, on that tower on the south side, they're very wide, and you only have the one small door. I don't know if that's a function of you can't have any more doors on those. Are those rooms?
These are rooms. These are, so the doors are proportioned for the rooms. Those are larger guest suites back there, but those are all balconies for the suites.
Yeah, that level's recessed from the floors below.
That's correct.
Now, but go to the very south tower component, the southwest, on the left side of the screen.
Southwest. Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, southeast. My apologies. Yeah, it's just you got one narrow door and a really big wide balcony. It just looks a little odd.
I see what you're saying here.
Either narrow the balcony or add more doors or something. But yeah, maybe just look at the coins, the rustication, just get some of the detailing to be more true. Maybe skinny up that eave. It just seems really bulky and heavy.
Okay.
Yeah, just study the detailing of it. I think it's going to be a really wonderful building, so nice work.
Thank you.
Just lean into the historical side of it if you're going to go that route. It looks like the interiors are all that way as well.
Yes, that's
I'm
correct.
surprised you're not doing a more modern hotel, but that's your decision. Anyway, it's great. I think it's a good project. I have no problem with the abandonment. Again, address all the concerns of the neighborhood there in terms of safety and cleanliness. So those are my thoughts. Anyone else want to?
I had a question too for the architect. On the third floor, there seems like there's sort of like two white cylinders stuck to each other next to the planted pots. I'm not quite sure what those are.
Third floor,
I'm sorry, the fourth floor, I guess.
Yeah, like the fourth, you have some piers engaged into the
If you go
rooms.
one way or the other, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, right there. Those circular sort of things right in front of the two potted plants, they seem to be repetitious elements at every.
oh, those are the balcony dividers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the room dividers?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the only other comment, and I like looks like cypress or some kind of juniper or something planted, and architectural renderings look great where every single thing is green and perfect down there. But the reality is, like, who's taking care of them? Are they all going to look symmetrical? What if 5 of them die? Is that going to look bad from the street? Just maintenance thing and suggestive for, is it automatic irrigation? All those kind of things come into play. But I appreciate that facade treatment, and it's really just sort of maintenance concerns.
Understood. Yes, absolutely.
So on that same balcony, are those glass guardrails or are those metal pickets? I can't really tell.
On this, they're, oh, sorry, I was trying to zoom in, but it's not working. They're metal pickets. The roof is where we have the glass.
But the ones below too, on the second level and the 5th level, those are glass or metal?
Those are metal pickets.
They're metal?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, if you're going to go that architectural style, the metal might be nicer than the glass. It might be less maintenance, but we'll leave it up to you guys either way.
Okay.
So anyways, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Nice
Thank you.
project.
May I
Anyone want to
take
make a
a-
motion? Oh,
Oh, sorry, may we take a quick relook at the northeast elevation? Yeah, it seemed a little bit plain to compare, definitely a lot plainer than the opposite side. Is that where is housing
This
the
is-
elevator, is the
This
stairs?
is the stair right here, correct.
Yeah, if you could add a little bit more detail, just make it a little bit more interesting than the plain walls.
or terminus to the roof, similar to that elevator component. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Maybe put some blind recesses down the vertical or something to, yeah, that is kind of a big blank facade. Did you go back? Did you have a rendering of the west side there? Yeah. Yeah,
At southwest.
there's one more. Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
And
maybe
again,
up-
this is the stair and elevator cores right here.
Yeah, maybe you don't need to have real openings, just some maybe kind of artificial, like fake
Recess.
openings. If they just a little, add more, slightly more details than currently.
We can take a look at maybe a recess or some articulation to break down that facade.
Yeah, that one and that stair tower on the north side too. So I think just another, whether staff looks at it, you bring it back here, but it just needs another whole layer and level and in-depth study of some of that detailing. But okay, nice project.
Thank you.
Anyone want to make a go at it?
One other question I was just going to ask. The balconies, are they all functional? There's no faux balconies, correct?
Correct, they're all functional.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 23-12 as listed in the staff report dated June 12, 2024. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review request satisfies all of the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Article 2, Section 94-52B2, and with the added condition that the architect's going to look at all of the detailing that Roger Jansen had mentioned.
Okay. All right. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay, motion carries. And then I guess the same for the, is it same for the abandonment?
Yep. Mr. Chair, I move that the Downtown Action Committee recommend approval for the recommendation of the right-of-way abandonment as listed in the staff report dated January 12, 2024. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The Downtown Action Committee hereby makes findings of fact that the subject 11th Street right-of-way abandonment requested satisfies all of the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Chapter 78, Article 7.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries as well. Thanks. Thanks. Good luck with the project. Okay, we have one more item today. Item 3, formal site plan review, case number 24-02, request by Alfonso Hernandez Architect on behalf of Parks and Rec. For special review, go ahead and hear from the applicant. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alfonso Hernandez, architect here in downtown West Palm Beach. The address is 314 Clemata Street. We appreciate the opportunity to present the project and basically to explain what we're trying to accomplish. In this case, what we're doing is we're replacing an existing community center that's located in Howard Park. The community center at this point no longer serves the needs of the community. And so we have been working on our new design. And today what we're trying to do is look at being able to, again, replace the existing building, put the new building, but it's really just a matter of square footage. The area that is being removed, it's really not exceeding what is actually there. It's just the way that I think the zoning has indicated the areas to be. So we'll be able to explain that to you shortly. So as I mentioned, this is our new proposed project. It's located in Howard Park, and in this case, we are shifting the building a little closer to the street, as shown here in this elevation. So let me just take you through some of the drawings. You can kind of see more of the context. So as mentioned, the building is located kind of like in that little orange, or let's say the yellow spot along the park. We have Okeechobee, obviously, to the left-hand side. We have Kravitz, you have the convention center, and then further south we have the Armory building that's located again south of the building. So that's the area that is in question, and that reflects the areas that we are going to discuss today. So the existing building, or let's say the community center, is located at the top part of the sheet, and you can see that there's all these red areas. All the red areas really are the locations of the buildings that we're trying to remove at this point. So there's basically 3 parts that are going to be demolished. The existing parking will stay as we have it. On the, let's say, closer to the west is where we have some existing shuffleboard courts and enclosures. The community no longer uses these shuffleboards, and so that's being planned to be removed. And then the outline on top of the shuffleboards is going to be the location of our new structure, our new building. There's also, in between this building, there is an existing restrooms, and those restrooms are also to be planned to be removed. Again, they're outdated at this point, and so we're no longer going to be using those. And then the existing building is the one, again, at the top. That existing building, we are planning to keep a portion of the building. The building won't be used, let's say, as the community center, but we're planning to reuse that structure. It's actually a really nice structure inside, and we want to make it into a pavilion. And so that's really the scope, is to try to make that building, repurpose that portion of it into a pavilion, and then to create the building down to the south. Otherwise, that really is, the project itself. And as here you can kind of see what we're aiming to accomplish, to be able to bring the building a little closer to the street. In this case, it would be to Parker Avenue, and that creates more of an engagement for the pedestrian, for the bicyclist, to be able to come and approach the park. And then we're creating more of a green area that currently is not there. And then the separation is, in the distance, is where you have the pavilion that we're going to repurpose. On each side of that pavilion, there are restrooms that we are going to keep and renovate. So there's currently restrooms at that location that we're, again, plan to renovate it. This is pretty much the area that we're adding a dumpster that's located along the site. There's really beautiful trees along the parking area that's going to stay as is, and we're going to add a couple of handicap parking spaces, restripe it, and at this point we are also intending to add additional lighting for the area. Again, the floor plan is really composed of what the community was looking for, which is 3 main spaces. And so that's all part of, again, our particular scope. There's been an inspiration in our case, inspired by the story of the place. We'll just briefly tell you about that. Howard Park was named after D.D. Howard, which is the first superintendent back in the 1930s. And he's the one who had proposed to create a park in this area. The edge of the city really was at that location. Everything west was pretty much wetlands and Everglades. And so D.D. Howard did a couple really wonderful things for the city. One is to create the park, and also he donated thousands of these really beautiful Royal Poinciana trees. And he was able to do that all the way from Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. So that tree basically is going to be, or became, an inspiration for the design of the project. And so as you can see, we have the Royal Poinciana to the left-hand side, and inspired a little bit of the facade and some of the ideas of the structure itself. And so that's one of the inspirations that we use. And so we have this, let's say, perforated panels that are creating this light and shadow. So as the sun hits it, it's constantly kind of in a beautiful motion. And it's using Corten steel as the structure itself. So again, this would be located along Parker Avenue. That's the facade, let's say, heading north on Parker Avenue, as you can see as you're approaching it. As you, let's say, bend around and are inside the actual park itself, we do have perforated, again, panels on some of the sides. We have canopies that allow for a lot of shading, which we really like, and we think it's going to be really a wonderful idea for the park. In this case, the community did vote for it, and I think they're very much in agreement with some of the design ideas. So this is a view from looking at from the park side, looking towards the building. So this would be kind of on the east side. The east side, we do open up the openings a lot more and be able to express kind of the concept and the architecture there. The tree, and then some of these ideas, we're bringing in an artist to actually help us to execute that particular vision. And so we're in the works to be able to do that as well. On the inside, again, it's going to be a pretty interesting community center. So those who live nearby will be able to enjoy a cafe. That's going to be part of it. And then again, 3 functional areas on the inside that will serve as a banquet, will serve as an area for the community to meet, and also an exercise area. Again, another view from the interior of the lobby space. And in this case, we're using a lot of the ideas of the vegetations to be able to inspire kind of the architecture. So as I mentioned, this is the picture above is the existing structure, which is actually really nicely done. It was a timber construction, and we aim to keep that and convert it into kind of an open pavilion, similar to the image on the bottom of the sheet. So again, the petition really is to address the areas. We are pretty much demolishing a portion of it, but we're not building an excess to it. So that really wraps up my presentation. I don't know if you need anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Alex Singlier, planner for the record, and just want to explain briefly why you're seeing Howard Park today. So per the zoning regulations, since this is located in urban open space, special reviews is required, so that's why you're hearing it, and it wasn't completed internally. And then the applicant did a wonderful job presenting, so I'm not going to repeat anything he said further. So this is just the background of the allowable development capacity of the new community center, since you see that they are expanding it. So per the code, it would be existing civil use. So yes, they are demolishing the shuffleboard courts, but that was not included in the calculation for capacity since it's not considered a civil use. So that's why you see those numbers drop and you're just thinking like, okay, well, that's a big part of it, because if you go back, the total of the demolishment is 10,999, but because the shuffleboard court isn't considered a civil use, that's why it was not included in the 10% bonus. And then the proposed would be 7,159. No variances are required for this. This does meet code. The special review standard staff did find that it met all the standards I'll touch on briefly. So this would still be in compliance of the original vision of Howard Park that was set in September 2002. It increases the shade, aesthetic improvements. It meets the growing needs of the city as we're seeing all this development. It is time to also increase our park's appearance and allow more people to utilize it. Also, regarding the parking, no major changes are being completed, but because the new community center will be located on the shuffleboard courts, we did request the applicant to relocate the ADU parking spaces closer so it's easier access. So they did shift closer to the new building, as opposed to where it once was. Regarding building design, staff agreed it was a great use of incorporating D. Howard in the history of the poinsettia trees. It shows a good use of character and color. It's a contemporary style. For D, great use of lighting, visibility increase, landscaping. It allows more recreational space for events. And then below on that picture is just the detail of the pictures and the materials. This did go to PPRC, May 11th, 2023. Understand it did take a little bit. There was little minor changes, but that's why you're seeing this now. Public notice did go out on June 12th for all the properties located within 500 feet of the radius. Staff's recommending approval. Are there any questions for me?
There may be. Why don't we go ahead and get through public comment, and we'll come back to you and the applicant. But yeah, very nice. Thank you. Nice presentation. Let's do some public. And if anyone else wants to speak, this is Robert Cosgrove, if you want to stand and speak. And if anyone else wants to speak, just fill out a form and make sure we hear what you have to say.
I'm Robert Cosgrove. I live 728 Palm Street in Grandview Heights, which borders the entire eastern flank of Howard Park. And I've lived there for over 30 years, so I've seen it improve quite a lot. But Howard Park, Grandview Heights exists. It's a blend of architectural styles that are very traditional. Grandview Heights is also the oldest continuing neighborhood in the city right now. We lost Palm Beach Heights, which is now underneath the convention center. But the architecture that we're accustomed to is craftsman style. There is some Art Deco, very little, but there is some, and Mediterranean revival. This we need. We need a revised community center. But this, I hesitate to say, this would be a blemish. It doesn't match anything else that we have established as a neighborhood. And to the south of us, we have Flamingo Park, which are beautiful Mediterranean-style houses scattered through there. So I would just I was listening to you before you making comments about architectural integrity on some of these other projects. I would just like the same consideration to be given to the people that live off Howard Park. And we did this once before when the new fire station was being built, or the replacement for Fire Station 4. Originally, the plan was something very, very modern, and we got together as a neighborhood and we discussed it with city people, and they modified it. And right now, it is beautiful conforming architecture. It's kind of Spanish style. It's updated Spanish style, but it's there. So if you just give consideration, We need the center. I like the idea of maintaining some of the original building to be used, but even a new fascia on that existing building has to be done. So if that could somehow match or mirror what the neighbors are looking at, I personally would appreciate it, but I'm only one voice. Thank you.
It'll make for some interesting conversation. We'll sort of follow up with that. Thanks for that. Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public discussion and go ahead and let the board members ask questions of the
Roger.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
I'm sorry, Leah Rockwell, Director of Parks and Recreation. I was on an airplane and my ears I can't hear very well right now. Apologies. So in response to the architectural style, we did have a very robust community outreach where we had two different architects. It was a competition actually. And the competition was, these two architects came up with a design. One was a more traditional Mediterranean design, and one is the design of which we developed further, which you saw today. The community, through the surveys that went out and on-site discussions at the park where both architects were there, this design was the one that the community supported the most. So that is why we moved forward with it and not the traditional designs which you might see throughout the neighborhood. Additionally, the architect can speak to why he came up with this more modern design due to the other industrial type areas that are surrounding the park, not just the neighborhood, which was the Kravitz Center, the convention center, as well as across the canal, there is the industrial area, which is all warehouses. So that is why the architect came up and kind of put all those designs together to come up with this. So just to give you a little history on how we got to where we are today. Thank you.
Very helpful. Thanks for the explanation. Okay, now we're closing public discussion. Thank you. All right, anyone got questions or comments?
Yeah, may I have a comment and question on the multi-use, multi-purpose rooms? Are some of, I saw like one separately and then two next to each other. Can they be opened up to join, let's say like a large event? So, like similar to hotels, for conferences, they can be sectioned off and they can be opened up for a large crowd if necessary.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think in this case, we did have, we studied a couple of options, but we used, the program that was created actually was based on the community's needs. They told us what they were looking for. It came through the Park and Recs, and so we created the 3 different spaces that there's still multiple uses in each of them, but they don't all open up. There's one that's more associated with maybe health. And so, but there's a lot of different health programs that could be in that. The banquet hall, again, could be for festivities, for parties, for different events. And then the other room could also could accommodate a lot of different functions as well, but they don't open up all up into one. There are a lot of openings to the exterior, but not necessarily as one contiguous space. Okay.
Follow up, real quick. Any one of those halls, I guess the health, probably more like office type rather than like exercise room type, but the other one maybe for like, exercise, like physical activities.
Yes.
Is there one that could potentially be used for dancing? Because I know, because I've been taking dancing classes in Palm Spring Community Center, and it's great. Why don't Palm Beach have anything like this?
Right.
And and it doesn't have to be a large space, but definitely needs wall-to-wall mirrors. So if you don't already have that, please consider that.
Definitely. So, probably Leah could explain better, but we do have exactly what you described. So the exercise room does have mirror on both sides with a rail, but I'm not sure what other programs may be pending there.
So the exercise room I insisted on it being a suspended wooden floor so that you could do dance classes, aerobic type activities, as well as put down mats for yoga or bring in other equipment for health and wellness, dance, physical activity.
By the way, we also have lots of other images. We just brought what we thought was brief, but in case if the committee would like to see other images, we have images of all the rooms as well.
Okay, thanks. Well, Greg?
Just one comment. I know there is to your outreach, was there any need to create a running trail? Because I know there is a large group of community members that use the area to run, and usually they go out to the street, but not sure if in the complex itself, if there is a trail a running trail on site.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question a little bit so I can hear?
Would there be a running trail on site?
If, what will be on the site?
Running trail.
Running
I
trail.
can tell you there is one in
think the
Howard
whole
Park.
park,
There is
yeah.
a trail throughout Howard Park that's
Oh,
mulched.
yes, I'm
and
sorry.
that you could
Yeah.
try.
So those are
walk
part
in.
of the existing conditions. Right now, the park has a dog park. There's a lot of activities in the park. Our focus is really just on the community center itself, but there's baseball park on the south side, there's dog parks, there's lots of trails through, there's a tennis court area, and which I think have also been in the process of being improved. So there's a lot of great functions in there, and there's also a parking area on the other side as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment. I think this is a really good responsive piece of architecture, like the genius loci, the spirit of the place, and I think you're responding to a lot of the community's input from that kind of meeting that you guys had. Just one of the things for the existing parking to the left of or the north of the building, have you thought about pervious, making that pervious? Because that's a huge heat island effect probably, because it's an enormous parking lot.
That's a great point, Brian. So we have a limited budget in this project, and so part of the difficulty always is where does the money go? And so the money really needs to go to the building, but we recognize that if there's better things that we could do, we would love that. But right now we have a definite budget that is pretty strict. What's nice about at least the parking area, if you've been out there, is that the trees are actually quite large, so it does help on the heat island effect. But it would be great if we could replace and put pavers, but it's just, it'll be another, let's say, increase to the budget that the city at this point may not have. But it's a great idea. I just wish we could incorporate that. What we did do, though, is we are removing quite a bit of the, let's say, surface areas that are unused, and so we're adding more green areas. If you noticed in the park area, so there's a lot more green now than what's currently there. So it's going to be a lot more green, a lot more landscaping that hopefully will create a nice environment for all the residents to be there.
Yeah, it's a great building, great, interesting facade and treatment, especially the screening where it mimics those trees with canopies. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Thank you very much.
So, Alfonso, speaking of the budget, has the building been budgeted now?
Yeah, so that's been the hardest thing that we've been dealing with is the budget. And right now, we feel pretty good of where it needs to be. Obviously, there was an original budget that was done many, many years ago. And so we went through a lot of, as you all know, the last 3-4 years has been very challenging in the construction industry. As labor has gone up, materials have gone up. So we've had to make some adjustments. We ideally would love to make the building bigger, but a budget doesn't really allow for those things. So we worked really very closely with our client to make sure that we can deliver this at this point. And so right now we're holding on to the budget that we've discussed, and so hopefully we can deliver. And then I believe the construction, in case if you're interested, would be I believe in November is when the actual construction will start. Right now we're in permitting, so hopefully by that time nothing terrible happens to the economy, but hopefully everything will move forward as needed.
Yeah, the canopy structures are all very interesting, I'm sure very expensive, so hopefully those don't get value engineered out of the project. Just the only question, can you bring up your slide of that, the perspective view on the two?
Sure. I'm not sure which is, can you put the slide back? Sorry.
No, I think in general, just assuming everyone's, this is a required project and needs to be done, the program's been studied, I'm sure that if that's all square, I think it's a really well-done project, very intriguing. Glad to see you're saving some of the old structure there, because it is a nice structure.
Yeah, it's actually, it's really beautiful in the inside. We thought it was wonderful to try to keep it and to just repurpose it. I think it was done very nicely, and that was one of the really nice qualities that we all looked at. Where did you want for us to focus on?
Just that perspective view from the
Okay,
west
sure.
side. Yeah, any one of those, or even it shows the canopy on the north.
Okay, the
northwest. Yeah,
canopy?
So these are different. These I like because you have a more abstracted form for your trees. I'd lean away from the literal copy of a tree trunk.
Correct.
Because it's just going to look.
Correct.
Too I
Yeah,
think this is
so-
the right direction where you've abstracted the tree. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working quite a bit. Part of it is budget, part of it is understanding, there's a concept and then we try to develop the concept. But in this case, it's really, it looks basically like an arch.
Right.
And so the idea is that it's arching across, but it's obviously helping to support the weight in a very delicate way that kind of appears a little bit like a tree.
I like that. I'm gonna do that for sure. And is that a glass roof on that one with a fretted?
So no, the top is actually perforated panel, and so it creates shade, but we really don't have the budget to do like a big, like a glass in, let's say, top. So it's really perforated panels that allow really wonderful shading, so throughout the day, the shadows will be able to help, create some shading for the areas.
Is that the same on the southeast corner as well? It's perforated?
Yeah, it's perforated panels, and these days, as you can see here, it creates a really nice look, but it's not meant to cover from the rain. Just creates really nice shadows. It's pleasant to be underneath. Part of the issue of heat island effect is being able to keep buildings cool, so shading elements help, trees help, those type of things help, and that's pretty much on all the facades. The front is where it's a little different in that we do have a canopy because that is the main entrance, but otherwise the perforated panels are very helpful in that respect.
No, I get all that. I think aesthetically it's beautiful. I think it's very impractical to not have that as a rain protection. You got all that covered area there, usable area. I mean, I'd reconsider options where some way to get that to accomplish what you want aesthetically, but functionally get that to be a weather safe condition. The shade's great. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great, but when it's pouring rain, I don't know where everyone's going to go there. So I think that would be maybe something to consider strongly, is to get that to be weatherproof. But yeah, aesthetically, I think the building is very, very brilliant. It's well done. I think it addresses the street. Mr. Cosgrove's comments about the architecture, we could argue that both ways, but I think this is the better direction to go. The fire station example, I think that's an example of a unsuccessfully executed Mediterranean building. It should have been deco or modern, but I think this is going to be very intriguing. It addresses the street, the other architectures, neighborhoods. So I would argue that this would be appropriate in terms of what our purview is. So those are my really main comments. I would really strongly consider getting those terraces and loggia spaces to be weatherproof, and just some of the detail, but it's really, really well done. Nice work. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's it for me. Oh, and then on the east side, the HP, I mean, should you just not put Howard Park up there? It's kind of like a trendy move, like IHOP or something. It seems kind of weird.
All right.
It's Howard
We'll
Park,
take
make
that
it
in
Howard Park. But
consideration. Yeah, no problem.
leave it up to Parks and Rec and all you brilliant people. Any other comments on this one?
Is there an existing cafe today with the structure?
No, there isn't. The cafe is something that actually the community wanted, and so that was part of the requirements. Is a lot of places they want to be able to go and then let's say have a cup of coffee or soft drink while they're there, and so this is going to be new. I don't think there's any community centers that currently have that right now.
In addition, so the reason for the cafe, it's really I look at more of like an internet cafe. So a lot of people are doing remote work. And so if they want to come to the park and they want to get away from being at home, to get out in an area that is beautiful, inviting, where they can do their work in a public space like this, as well as maybe grab a cup of coffee while they're doing it. At the same time, we hope to have some preschool type programming going on. So if you're a stay-at-home worker, a remote worker with a small child, you might be able to come and do your work here while your child is attending a ballet class or an art class or something like that. So we wanted to create a space that was welcoming for this new remote type of work that people are doing.
Okay. Yeah, just to make sure that it's operated appropriately and staffed well.
Good point.
Okay.
All right. Very-
So
very nice.
I got a
Wanna make
comment
motion?
on the Core 10 steel, if I could just have you stay up there still. So I think aesthetically, the colors, everything looks great, but the Core 10 steel, as I understand it, and maybe you as an architect and perhaps Roger, there's treatments here, but I've been involved with several different projects elsewhere in the community, whether it's on buildings or public art, and in the built examples, we've noticed that it stains. It just runs, and it's got this red staining to it, and so there's a lot of Core 10 steel here, so I don't know if there's an application that you do to that to make that not happen, or perhaps you consider an alternate material, but we've had projects in other municipalities that are like, no, you can't use Core 10 steel because it's all gonna stain and leave this terrible thing, and it's a maintenance issue. So if you could talk to that a little bit, please.
Sure. So you're right. I think with Corten steel, it's one of these great materials that will last forever, and so that's why we kind of like the idea that you don't have to paint it. But there is a process that the metal goes through in which basically it's becoming patina, and so during that process there is some staining. And so what we did in this case is that, for example, the ones along the front, there's a grass area, so if there's any staining, it drops on the glass. The Corten steel is actually away from the glass, and it's actually floating. And in the areas that are below that, we actually have a color, which is the red color. So we anticipate that we're going to be able to have a little bit of staining. So let me just kind of indicate that staining is not necessarily, if it's not treated well, then it becomes an issue. So here on the floor plan, I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but in the areas where we believe there may be some staining, and it only happens at the beginning of when the panels are placed. But once that, again, the patina effect happens, then you no longer have any more staining effect. And so in those areas, we decided to go ahead and add the ground and the color to have a texture and a color that's similar. So if it drops and it goes on there, then you don't really see the staining, just kind of blends to it. And the rest of them, we do have some grass areas, and we're adding, a little bit more of that red color. It looks like it's missing over here, but that's ways of being able to treat it, because it will have some staining.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that explanation and that treatment. And then the only other comment I had is, and I really want to say that I love the integration of the landscape and the architecture. It feels welcoming and inviting. Just from a small detail standpoint, a Royal Ponciana tree is deciduous, so it's going to look great in the summer, beautiful red, and it's going to look bare and dead in the season in the winter. That's just part of the nature of the thing, and I just wanted to throw that out there. But you get the good and the bad with that, and that's just the way it is.
That's a great point. The communities right now, if you look around, it's red, it's beautiful, but it does go through a process, so you're right about that.
Yep.
But when it's blooming, it's the most gorgeous tree that you can find.
That's true, and I think that weighs out the negative, so great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe you could, and then maybe if your Core 10 is a budget buster, you could always just, do a kind art finish and one of those burnt orange umber to be like
Understood.
the Ponciana.
Yeah, there's a potential aluminums that, they're actually aluminums are a little more expensive, but that's another option that we can.
That's more than the Core 10?
More expensive.
Okay, let's stay with that. All right. Any other comments, anyone?
Thank you.
One other one on the solar, any opportunity for solar panels for energy? Or, it's not part of the architecture necessarily, but maybe if with budget constraint currently, maybe we don't have it immediately, but maybe in the future, just because I see those huge space in there, and then the beautiful tall ceilings that are gonna require a lot of energy to cool down. And so or is there any plan for solar energy in there?
So that's a really good point. At this point, we don't, again, have a budget for it, but what we do is we just provide some conduits from the electrical room up to the space, so in the future, there's always a need, we can accommodate that. We do have a good clear span of it. We don't proceed to have a tremendous amount of weight with future panels, but it could accommodate it in the future, and there'll be conduits so that, if there's another budget, let's say, in 2 to 3 years from now, it could be added. And we do have a parapet that does screen that from a distance, so you'll be able to have those panels screened. Okay, thank you.
One other question. Is this going to be a LEED building?
Currently, it's not planned to be LEED. Is using the LEED principles. and that's what the state mandates. So we're using LEED principles, but it's not going through the certification process. Again, more, if we had a little bit more, then we can potentially do that.
Okay. I just see it's a strong potential for that because you have
It's
all
great.
these
It's
elements.
got, we can get lots of points right away by, rebuilding and doing some of those things. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, or someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 24-02 as listed in the staff report dated May 23, 2024. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-54B2.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? My other point, do you want, I would just like, if it's okay with the motion maker, add a condition that the applicant study the weatherproof canopies, especially at the southeast corner,
Yes, I'd like to add
whether it happens or not.
to accommodate shaded areas or covered areas during rain events.
Okay, awesome. Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay, motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, great. Great project. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Okay, that's it for today's cases. No code revision cases, admin appeals, unfinished business. Just a couple questions for staff while we're all here together.
Yeah.
And I guess the first one was relative kind of to this project. I know we've been talking about this for years. The connection over to the warehouse district is very dangerous in my mind. Is anything being done about that? I know there were some issues with the governing bodies that sort of are responsible for that land, but
When you say the warehouse district, are you talking about the Jefferson Terminal District?
yeah.
Well,
Where you crossing the fire station to get across over into the warehouse district.
So
For pedestrians, it's extremely dangerous.
Coincidentally, we have a mayor commission workshop next Monday. Under the previous administration, I approached the then mayor and asked if we can do a master study for the whole Jefferson Terminal District. We kind of put it on hold for 2 or 3 years during COVID. We started it up again about a year ago. So we're going to present that on Monday to the city commission. So I've got a meeting tomorrow with my staff to go over the PowerPoint. So once we make that presentation, certainly I welcome everybody to watch it. It should be broadcast live at 10, but we certainly can share with you the PowerPoint presentation that is made. But we are working with engineering on Caroline Street, which is, I think, the area you're talking about that would provide access to the Jefferson Terminal District.
That's great. I know the flashing light went in and the paint stripes on the street. That was a good start, so.
That curve of the road, that's just really a tough geometry, when you're at that.
It is. And one of the things we looked at, certainly there's all kinds of storm drainage issues there, there's parking issues. We were looking at it from a development standpoint, because the big fear with the land cost being so less there compared to downtown, there would be a strong resurgence. And while, yes, we have seen some redevelopment in that area, it is limited from a traffic perspective. We've been working with Kimley Horn to analyze that. So we're going to present some of our findings. We still have a bit to go, but we've been working on this for some time. So we thought it was time to give the commission an update of where we are. So we'll do that on Monday.
Yeah, good. And then while we're on streets and roads, do you have any idea when that Tamarind north of Banyan is going to open up ever? Is it?
I don't know.
We're on year 5 now?
Tamarind from Banyan going north?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be close, because the work is nearing completion, but I'll see if I can get a date from engineering, and we'll provide that to everybody.
It's mind-boggling. Anyway, and then lastly, any update on the 314 Clematis, on the south side, the old Woolworth building, the through block alleyway dream?
Yeah, the CRA property. Do you know, Claudia?
It's just kind of been a blight on Clematis for
That's the
4
property
years.
that the city bought. Let me get an update from the CRA on that.
Yeah. Be nice to see something happen.
It would be. It would be.
It's
It's been
been a
sitting
dead-
in that condition far too long, so.
Okay.
Rick, while you're there, can I ask you real quick on the EV charging stations in the building that was in the first case? It seems weird to me that there was 0 EV charging stations, and I'm just kind of wondering about that. Like, can you retrofit a big building like that if 10, 15 people want?
You can. One of the things that we have on our long-term plan is we want to revisit the whole parking section, not only for downtown, but citywide. And that's one of the things we'd like to do because we'd like to have a lot of transportation demand management strategies, certainly EV charging stations. We are encouraging in all our future developments, both inside of downtown and out. But hopefully we get to a point where that just becomes a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then lastly, this is going back to the first project, is there any way to make it a requirement for the applicants on these big urban projects on the sidewalks to really illustrate graphically what all of the mechanical, fire, water, all the appurtenances, how they're going to appear physically to the street? Because it's always an afterthought, and they always are unsightly. I know they have to be there by law and code, but it would just be nice to see them integrate it in the design phase, landscape phase, early on in the project, so it's not such an afterthought.
Yeah, certainly as part of our review, we
As
can
part of your
require
review.
that, yeah.
So exhaust, generators, vents, all that stuff. Yep. Okay, that's it. Anybody else have any other thoughts before we depart today?
Quickly, maybe if you could share with us what the latest status with the transit villages is. The land still in litigation with the county, or?
I'm meeting with a representative from Related Group tomorrow. They're in litigation with the county, so I'll probably have an update as of tomorrow, but right now I can't tell you where that stands. They have made a request of the city on certain concessions they're requesting, so that's under review right now by the city, but I couldn't tell you where the litigation is right now. But I'll have a better idea after I meet with Mr. Chesnick, I think at 10:30 tomorrow.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Anyone else? Anything? Okay, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thanks for your time, everyone. Thank you, staff.